Hi there and welcome to The Replacement Heroes, a D&D podcast run by me, Sean, the Dungeon Master, and erstwhile mechanic of improvisation to deal with these guys. These are my wonderful players.
I'm Kim.
I'm Chance.
And I'm Sarah.
And without further ado, we'll jump straight in. So, after the year it's taken you to travel most the length and breadth of the Crownland, coming from more dangerous southern climates, for reasons that you two are fully aware of, you found yourself in the last bastion of civilization in the north, before the wild frontier becomes inhospitable to anything but the roaming beasts and natives that inhabit these places. You found yourself in Tanelheim, a sprawling walled city, the walls 30-35 feet high, thick in places, tumbled down on the southern corner from a war long past. The city has spread out of that hole, and it's become known as the Sprawl. This is where anybody that never finds their real place in the city resides. Just inside the walls, you've been staying in one of the more accepted residential areas, a landed district. Here is the hustle bustle of everybody that lives and breathes and works within the city. Being an entertainer and telling great stories from the south, whether they are true, embellished, or complete fabrication, Otis, Artabaxi, and Celise, a southern cleric, have found their home in the Stone Bear Inn. Months have gone by. Your coin has begun to dwindle. You found no real opportunity or purpose in the city. And while Otis's initial storytelling and fire-breathing and catching and eating wowed everybody, even Anders, the owner of the establishment, a short, stocky, balding, thick-bearded human man, was enamored with all of this initial display, has soon become jaded that it's bringing in absolutely no revenue to his coffers. People will toss you a copper here and there, and sometimes a silver, or they'll pay for your meal, but you're racking up the tab, and soon it's going to come time to pay it. Astiel has spent most of her life within the walls of Tanelheim. A native to this land, she hails from a solid blacksmithing family that made their name, their mark within the sprawl, that area of the city that pushes out into the surrounding woodland and lowland hills of the Heartwood. She is a devout follower of the Temple of the Raven Queen in the Raven's Nest, the only centralized place of worship in the world for the goddess of death. Having gone through that sacred passage that all sisters of the unkindness must go through, you have found yourself renewed, touched by your god, and reborn with a different view of how the world works and your place in it. Only you've come to find that events in your temple's history have left it stagnant. The mysticism and legend that kept you through your training, the lessons and stories told to you, are just exactly that. They're just stories. Now that you're on the other side of it, you're nothing more than glorified guards. There's nothing that separates the Sisters of the Unkindness from a common city guard. The only difference is you died to get where you are. As the summer snows begin to come in here at the north, the harvest time is approaching. It's still warm. You don't have to put extra logs on the fire and conserve all that body heat. But it's still beginning to snow. Frost hasn't formed yet in the valley, but high on the Spine Peak Mountains that cradle the edge of the world, the caps are getting larger and thicker and heavier. Roiling clouds get caught by those creeping stone fingers into the sky, and they hold there. You know that this summer is ending. 4 years this has stretched on, Astiel. The weather has been pretty kind. It's allowed the lumber trade to boom. You assume that the northern country here has enough stockpiled food to last through the harsh winter. The last true winter was about 10 years ago. And in that winter came the Thrangs of Manu Kral. People remember that. Giant entities that came down from the frozen wastelands of the north. They were stopped at the river. The brave soldiers and mercenaries of the Irregulars and the Trappers Society refused to let them pass the the Clear Glass River. Getting all my rivers mixed up. Everybody, whether you're a native of this land or not, knows about stories of the Manu Kral. About 150 years ago, they made it past the river because the garrison up there was not what it once was. They assaulted the city proper and thousands died. Either killed in the assault, murdered by these giant creatures, or stolen and dragged back to the frozen north to be slaves, food, fun. Who knows? All you know is that where that wall was destroyed, 100-foot stretch of wall ripped down with their bare hands, that's the lasting legacy of the giants. And no one's seen them for a very long time. 10 years since the last soldiers saw them, well over 100 since the populace saw them. But it's always a constant reminder of the hazards of the north. That mercenary guild, the Trappers Society, they are the elite of the elite. They are made up of hunters, rangers, warriors, spellcasters, archivists, historians, the greatest storytellers the world has ever seen. Have spent time with this guild. Started long ago in the Crownland's ancient early days as exactly that, a trapping society. They trailblazed the forest. They made safe the northern wastes for the people migrating from the south. They were so good at their job, people were asking them to do other things. They would give them coin to help clear out bandit nests, and they would help the military secure the borders. And over time, with the new leadership, this society grew into a very effective fighting force that attracts everyone from everywhere that decides they want to make a name for themselves in the world. For 50 years, all positions have remained closed in the Trappers Society, only open by invitation. However, with this coming harvest, a lone figure was seen nailing a large, dusty sheaf of parchment to the town board in the middle of Tannelheim. Adventurers wanted. The Trappers Society of Tannelheim proudly requests all who seek fame, fortune, and glory apply within. And the location of the muster, which is their fortress stronghold, on the edge of Edgemont, the mining town to the north, the last outpost of the crown before you hit the river. Everybody knows the trappers. They know the money's good, You get to stay within their fortress, you get fed, you get clothed, your equipment's serviced and maintained, you get benefits and services not given to common folk, but most importantly, you get the respect and the responsibility of being able to go anywhere in the world you want and get paid for it. You just have to be up to the task and challenge of performing whatever contracts are asked of the trappers. For each of you, this has become an attractive opportunity for Astiel. It gets you out of the dusty, underground, dark halls that your sisters patrol as if they are heroes of old, when in reality you know that they have nothing else to do. They train their body to try and keep their mind sharp. For Otis, there's a bit more on the line. Unbeknownst to him, something dwells within him that taps into the very fabric of the universe. Magic power swells within him, and while he doesn't know it's there, others have noticed. In the Crownlands, any magic that is not of a divine nature must be registered with the Collegiate, an arcane academy that sprawls the entire length of the Crown. If anyone uses magic openly without a license from the Collegiate, the Crown is allowed to hunt them down, fine them if it's a minor offence, arrest them and incarcerate them in a prison on the God's Isle, or murder them where they stand for treason. No one can really remember why this happened, why this has started this way, and why this has been tradition for the last 1,000 years, but this is the way it is. No one questions it. Being a trapper gets you a free license, paid for and signed by not only the collegiate representatives in the north, but also the high canons of the temples. For Celise, being religious and dedicating your life to following Palor's light, it does not shine brighter anywhere in the world than here in the north. Palor is the father, he is the All-Father, the Dawn Father. Everybody in the north, to some extent, gives thanks to Palor. Even if they worship other gods, they know life doesn't flourish without him. And for reasons that you know, for reasons that you and Otis both know, but most importantly, the reasons you keep secret to yourself, you have chosen to follow Otis. To keep him safe, the best way to do that is to join the guild. They keep him safe, which in turn keeps you safe. Initially, close to 30 people coming from all the townships and the city proper itself, even ranging from the fortress the Empire sustains beyond the river, come down. Soldiers, you've got blacksmiths, hunters, everyone from the cook boy in the Stone Bear tried his hand at fame and glory and becoming a trapper. He didn't last very long. The initial rounds of tryout were grueling. I need everybody to make a constitution check. So roll a d20 and add your constitution modifier to it.
Go for it.
It's 10. Wait. 12.
12? Okay.
It was a 14.
Was it?
Yeah. I believe so.
No, so that one's 16.
Oh.
And then what am I on?
Constitution mod.
17.
Fared way better. 8, 9, 10, 1, 12. Right?
Plus 2.
Oh.
10.
10.
10, 12, 17.
Yes.
Okay. Astiel, you found it no different than the physical trials and tribulations you had to go through to prepare yourself for the passage. This tryout for the trappers is a breeze. It's a light sweat. And every time somebody else fails, all it does is secure what you already know. You're gonna win this.
But I'm a boss-ass bitch.
You're a boss-ass bitch. You got a place here in the Trappers. Ain't no thing. Celise, this is a different kind of workout. Where you come from, on the southern continent, especially so far south on Xanthar, across the Lost Coast, you're at lower altitude. You've grown up your entire life close to sea level. The air up here is thin. And while you are strong, and you've spent a young life hauling ropes on the docks and being a ship hand and other avenues of occupation before you became to the temple, you're definitely giving it your all. Otis very quickly finds he has never been tested like this in his entire life. Even running through the jungles down on Xanthar, hunting for food as a young catling, absolutely everything, climbing the giant 100-foot frond trees and stretching palms. This is something else. You are hearing all this straining and grunting. You're having to dive under razor wire fences as people fire off spells right into the ground next to you. Explosions throw Lord knows what all over you. You find yourself coming out the end of it, hauling yourself up these ropes. You want to give up. Your body tells you, stop this, you're going to die. But something keeps you going. And where you see people bigger, physically stronger, more intimidating than you drop away, something deep down inside you allows you to be one of 6 that remain. You don't know how. All you know is that you did it. Barely, but you did it. In this wide stretching courtyard of the muster, these high sandstone walls that rise up around you, a ballista on each corner facing out into the wildlands around where this mercenary guild is built. You see stood before you the large form of Ultran Iron Tusk. Standing 7 feet, bristling black fur, giant iron-capped horns, is the taskmaster of the guild. Not the leader, but definitely the man that keeps everybody in shape. This giant minotaur, his booming voice that has been carrying you through these trials, gives you each nod of respect. The small ring that is clamped between his nostrils, tiny little bell, just tinkling every single time he turns his head. You see scrimshawed etchings and language you don't understand curving around those iron-tipped tusks, his horns. His skin, you see scar tissue carved directly into the fur, that scrolling tattoos of scar tissue. He keeps a braided sash with a long golden sword, a curved scimitar. From your days down south, you'll understand that this is a pirate insignia. He keeps it just tattered and frayed, attached to his hips, where an assortment of pouches and packages lay. And through whispers from the last couple of days of going through these ordeals, you understand that this is one of the most notorious pirates that ever kind of sailed the seas. He's now an honest working man that has been heading the mercenary task forces for the last 20 years. Each of you have proven yourselves capable of doing something the others haven't. Not failing until this point. And he looks, casts his eyes on all of you, kind of stops a moment on Otis and just His wide nostrils flare out. Kind of looks you up and down. No other emotions on his face. He turns and looks at the other three figures that stood near you. There is this large, burly man. Thick leathers and chain adorn his body, where you can see his muscles between these armoured plates. His skin is a dark green. The veins stand on end. You can see scars and bruises littering across that flesh. A big, thick, full beard fills his face. Two large yellow tusks jut out from underneath his bottom lip. Piercing yellow eyes sit across a broad, flat, broken nose. This half-orc, huge axe strapped to his back. And a strange mask carved in the face of some snarling beast, blue-snouted, hardened leather with bone tusks and teeth set into it, and curling ram's horns off the sides of it. It looks like when he pulls it down, it forms a shield across his face, and his eyes peek out of the mouth. Just resting at the top of his head. Stood at either side of him is a human man, very dour-faced, long, lank hair, thin in places so you can see the scalp. Dark eyes, set deep back in kind of sallow sockets. His drab is all greys and browns, and he has a small recurved bow at his hip. Quiver full of arrows. He looks very worn. Definitely a woodsman, for sure. The third figure is a very lithe female standing at about shoulder height on this large half-orc male. She has long silvery hair that she keeps kind of tied up behind her head, braided with her own hair. Keen green eyes that dagger tip to her lobeless ears. Shrewd, young looking, but with a very, very sharp edge to her eyes. She plays with her hands underneath her cloak, kind of just stroking the tip of a dagger hilt. Nods to all three of those, and turns back. For the final part of your initiation, we only have 3 slots open. Now, you're all going to go up into the mountains, and whoever comes back down is a trapper. Who doesn't is crow food. You'll be taken up, you'll be split into teams, and well, I think you can guess the rest of it. Everybody kind of just looks at each other. You hear the half-orc pop his neck, flex his shoulders. He knows what's coming. And it settles down, almost like a shiver down the back of your spine. You either come down alive, or you don't come down at all. He goes, you, and you. Over there. You 3, over there. The other 3 figures that were stood with you all group up, shimmy away from you, instantly begin discussing amongst each other. The large British orc looking over, kind of appraising all of you like prize meat, almost like a cow at the harvest fair. Ultron looks over all 3 of you, especially lingering his eyes on Otis. It's cold up there. I expect to see you return. Just kind of go, follow that one. And he points to a dark-skinned man stood over by the stables, one foot kicked up against the boarding slats for the horses. Long dark hair curling round. You can, from this distance, see gold trinkets and rings in his hair. Very chiseled features, ruggedly handsome, almost cut and crafted to look that rugged frontier way. Sparkling blue eyes as you approach. Steps forward, this shortcut, sleeveless robe falls open, revealing really light, tightly woven plates of scale. Tucked underneath, you can see heavy, thick wolf fur and fox fur, all stitched together in some kind of vest underneath. You assume to keep him nice and warm as you head up into the mountains. He goes, "My friends, come with me. Oh, you're going to have such a wonderful time." Everybody just make a general survival check.
Oh, damn it.
I lost my die.
Oh,
no, that's not good.
Okay.
My new dice have betrayed me. Oh, their maiden voyage is not going well. And there's no, do you add your survival to that?
Yeah, you add your survival modifier to it.
Can we just not do that, please?
Is it like negative?
-1.
Okay, so you 2 -1 takes it down to a 1 non-natural, but still. Okay.
12
Oh.
survival.
Oh, good. You're a cat. You should be fine. You've got 9 lives.
Okay, so 1, 12.
It's not looking good, guys. 20. Give us a 20. 17.
20, because I have a +3.
Okay.
Thank you, cleric.
So as this dusky human man gathers you up very quickly, you're allowed no time to rest after these grueling tasks and trials. He takes you swiftly out of the main gates, and you begin this horrible climb up the foothills into the Spine Peak mountain range, taken through the sprawl of Edgemont as it peaks up, foothill to foothill to foothill, up into the rocky terrain and crevasse that enters up into the mining territories in the mountains. The going is tough. Otis, you're definitely hanging in there. That something deep down inside is pushing you on, and you're just focusing on one leg in front of the other, one leg in front of the other, one leg in front of the other, one leg in front of the other. You're very keenly aware of the group of 4 that are walking up behind your group. A respectful enough distance, but gaining, to be sure. The 3 other figures that won the trials are being led by a short, stout dwarven man, beardless, which is somewhat of a shock, because beardless dwarfs usually only show their faces in public for very few things. For a dwarf to shave their beard off, they must have suffered some great shame. They brought some great betrayal down on their house, their culture, their peoples. They don't usually show their face. And here it is, bright shock of red short hair, beardless, small spectacles perched on his nose, just leading these people up into the mountains. In low conversation with them, but you can't quite make out the words at the distance, but you recognize the language. Celise, you're finding it as you move up into the foothills. The pace is getting easier. You had a good breakfast this morning. You've got small strips of jerky that you'll pop into your mouth every now and again. And being from the Lost Coast and finding yourself across that stretch of sand dunes often, you picked up a quick trick, and that was to pop a small, smooth pebble underneath your tongue to help build moisture. Stops you thinking about dehydration, stops you thinking about needing to reach for your water skin, which you weren't allowed to refill. Astiel, while confident in your position through the trials, you're getting tired. You didn't expect to have to hike up the fucking mountains directly after showing everybody how strong and tough you are by showing them up in the trials. And here you are, getting that tight burn underneath all that heavy armour, flexing your cold hands and your gauntlets. As you're going up, Celise is leading the way with this dark-skinned male. Otis is following up behind, kind of every now and again using the rocks to haul himself up, and Astiel is almost crawl walking up this mountain path. Eventually it plateaus out, and you come down into a wide, rough-cut circle about 100 feet across, and you can see mine entrances, all closed and barred with thick, heavy, like wood beams and massive iron chains that you've only seen kind of around port docks, securing giant, like closing gates and anchoring only the most, large fleet ships in the bays themselves. Thicker than a man's torso, these chains. They're definitely designed to either keep something out of the mines when they're not in use, or keep something in the mines when they're not in use. Not quite sure which. As you haul yourself up there, SDL, you kind of stand there for a second, take a deep breath, burning your lungs, this cold air. And you're like, you step down. And there before you is the dark-skinned fellow just kind of going, light smile on his face, little chuckle. And there is your two companions. You know the other group is roughly a minute or so behind you. So you've got a minute to catch your breath. You step down to the group, and this is the first time you really have to look at each other since going through all these trials. You were aware of each other going through the groupings, but you were more kind of focused on your own victory and making sure that you didn't die going through the trials. One person was at least knocked unconscious and had to be taken down to the clerics. You don't know what happened to him. You don't know if he's alright or not, but not everybody came out of those trials standing. Before you, Otis and Celise, you see a native of the north. Astio, if you want to go ahead and describe yourself.
So, I guess I can't really go with my original, swagger of X gonna give it to you, because it kind of sucks going up that hill, but anyway, as I take that final step up, the crunch of my armored boots is heavy, much like the rest of me. If Brick Shithouse looked like a person, it would be me. I stand easily north of 6 feet, with a body built like a female MMA fighter. Nothing about me is sweet. I'm all hard lines and muscles, from the square cut of my jaw down to thighs that look like tree trunks shoved into leather. My black hair is buzzed short to my skull on one side and cut into an A-line bob on the other, with a blue-black raven's feather braided into it, and my imposing size and stature is punctuated by a full black cloak, the shoulders of which are adorned in black raven's feathers that glint in dark blues and purples whenever I move. When the cloak kind of flutters out of the way, you can see armor underneath, but not shiny, not new, not bright, dull, little, dings cut into it. They've been used. And then on my hands, there are gauntlets. So, that's me. And I'm struggling now.
She doesn't appear to be carrying any kind of weapons. You're used to Celise carrying her weapons and armament on her, and everybody else clustered around you has some kind of weapon. The only people that don't is the man that led you up here, that, if you have asked him his name, hasn't given it. He just always seems to constantly be smiling. You see him shiver every now and again. He's not used to this cold air, but he's led you up here with a quickness to his pace that he knows the land. He's definitely been around here for a long time. But if you have asked him any questions on the way up, he's declined answering them in any kind of clear way that you've just given up asking him anything. And he's just there, hands to his side. She doesn't have any weapons on her, except her fists. From fingertip to elbow are these tight-fitting, black iron-plated gauntlets. Almost very sharp-looking tips, similar to your own claws, adorn each fingertip. Every single knuckle plate is curved outwards to inflict as much damage as possible. They're worn, chipped, no rust on them, but you can see whatever patina was put on them has begun to wear away on the knuckles. across the bridge of knuckles on the top of her hand, each part of the iron plate is bowed outwards in almost like a sharp pyramid. You can see that's where the most wear and tear in the patina is. Probably get the sense that, being as big as she is, she just punches people to death. You stand there, you look down, and you see Celise. What do you look like? The silence has struck.
Yes, it has. So, Celise is standing there, tall, almost 6 foot. She clocks it in a heavyweight. She's obviously muscled. Her armor is chainmail, but adorned with colors for Palor, very much more brighter than here in the north. Testament to her time in the south. Her hair is black and curly, strung back into a ponytail as tight and as short as she can get it. She wears a very unassuming smile, and her eyes are the lightest blue as opposed to her skin. And she's looking around, standing, hand on her mace just in case, keeping the daggers she has hidden on her side.
Stepping down into that small bowl, you see a woman that has almost the same physical presence that you do. Standing next to her, Otis, if you'd like to describe yourself.
I stand at about 5.5 foot. 110 pounds, soaking wet. Complete white fur, except for the very tips of my ears and the tip of my tail. I'm dressed in loose clothing.
Yeah.
Browns, greens. As much,
Okay, so as the eldest wrote down on a piece of paper, Ma, that fucking cat is back.
the fucking cat is back!
The fucking cat is back! That fucking weird looking cat! I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, please.
Loose fitting clothes.
Yeah.
Lots of greens and browns. Very young looking. Other than that, he's kind of looking around in the sky. His eyes don't really focus. His tail switching back and forth like constantly.
Did you say what color your fur is?
White.
You're white.
With gray tips on the ears and the very tip of the tail.
Okay.
To being young to back, she's kind of got like that full, puffy, round
Super
cheeks.
poofy.
Yeah.
The kitten.
Oh my god!
Anything else about him that kind of draws the eye?
He's got...
Like the...
Yeah, I know. He's got nearly white eyes, but they'd still be considered blue.
Okay.
And he seems to have spotted something in the sky that catches his interest. It's this little black snake-looking thing that's flying towards him. Nolan!
The man on the ledge up, he kind of catches his gaze, looks up, and he's like, "What the fuck is that?" As this very thin-looking serpentine creature with these long feathery wings that kind of curve out and then back towards its eyes, just kind of ghosts through the air, almost like a fish through water.
Is this a creature that Astiel would have seen
You
living
have
in the north?
never seen anything
Alright,
like this
Astiel
before.
tenses up a little bit and like puts her fist like, I'll fucking punch you if you come near me.
As it comes down closer and you see the sunlight reflecting off its scales, this rainbow shimmer goes along the kind of almost pearlescent black scales. And as it comes down and curls almost seductively around Otis's shoulders and curling up around his neck. You can see that in the front of the face, it's very wedge-shaped. These almost snake-like features, white underbelly to it. It's not small. It's about a good 4 feet in length, about as thick as your wrist. And when it wraps around him, it just encases his entire upper torso. Its head just languishly resting upon his shoulder. It kind of curls the wings down almost around his arms and settles like a cloak on him. And it just lazily flicks out this strange-looking tongue. It's blue to black, but as it kind of ghosts in and out, there's almost like this faint shimmer in the air that it leaves when it passes. It's a little unsettling, but it's not the weirdest thing you've seen. Being a native of Talheim and foraying into the Heartwood as a child, you've seen grumpkins and snarks and goblins and other strange creatures, so while shocking, it doesn't get your hackles up too much. You hear the chunk, 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 chunk of the other group approaching. The stout dwarven man grabs the two sides of the boulders that kind of form this weird archway coming into this bowl. He holds himself up. Right, come on. The other three file in behind him. Tall half-orc steps up behind him, kind of glances around, stops on Otis, looks at the weird snake entity around him and just goes, huh. Steps off, follows the dwarf. The sallow-featured man steps up. You see sweat beading across his sickly, wax-coloured skin. He's kind of seems to be having a rough time getting up here. Steps down away. And the lithe elf woman all but dances up the rocks. Drops down on her one foot. She kind of goes... follows around behind her grouping. The stout dwarven fellow steps forward and he goes... pushes his little spectacles up on the bridge of his nose. You can see they're dented in one part and the bronze is starting to kind of rub off into a silvery colour. He goes, "Right, I'm Endrin. I run the trappers. It's mine. 150 years at least. I'm showing you that I'm not just sitting behind a desk. I do things too. I don't boss people around, I lead. You come and work for me, be the best thing you ever did. I guarantee it. We've got simple rules. Simple rules. You come back down off this mountain, you behave appropriately while you're under contract. Everything you do when you're on contract is for the good of the guild. You find a potential contractee, you refer them to the guild. You find any course of potential revenue that can benefit the guild, you pass it on. We have outposts around the world you can send messages back and forth to. You don't drag our name through the mud. Understand? The society takes its due. The only reason we can keep the doors open and everybody in top fighting shape is because the money you earn from your contracts, we take a cut. It keeps you safe, keeps everyone safe. Pays for your licenses, your healing, your armor, your maintenance, everything. If we have to send you down south on a ship, pays for the damn ship. If we have to send you via airship to another continent, it pays for that too. Gets all the magic users their components. They don't have to go finding them. We take care of our own, so you take care of us. And probably the most important part of your time with the trappers is I can terminate you as I see fit. Don't think you get to sit around and have 3-course meals a day in my warm common room, not pull your weight. Just kind of looks at Astiel. It's in your kind before. You not so much. And he points to Otis. He's like, you interest me, and not many people do that. The last person to interest me used to be one of the nastiest pirates the world had ever seen, and now he's my right-hand man. Like I said, work for me, I'll do right by you. Now, you're the only 6 out of this batch of 30 to make it through. You think we haven't held open positions before? Nah. No one made it through. Just you. So what have you got that other people don't?
You got a dragon.
It's certainly an advantage. It's not a dragon, it's more of a newt, but sure. What do you have?
Nothing. I'm hurt.
I've got resolve.
I'll get you so far in life. He turns and he looks at the female elf, and she's already got a dagger out balanced on the point of her finger. She flicks it up into the air, and then none of you really see her catch it, and then it's gone. And he goes, that'll come in handy. Otis's eyes are wide, and he's kind of like a kid at the circus, kind of.
Is he like a cat with a laser pointer? Oh yeah, okay, that's good.
Just involuntarily.
Doing
Just
the chittering
purring.
noise, little.
He goes, it doesn't matter. What matters is only 3 of you are coming down off this mountain. We're going to be waiting at the bottom. You've probably been thinking on the way up here what you have to do to really become a trapper. Well, there's only 3 places. You're the only 6 here. You 3, and he points to Solis, Astiel knows, were picked by Ultran for whatever reason he only knows to himself. And as were you 3. The others kind of half orc. He seems to be paying very close attention to Endrin as he talks. Almost like a horse in the slips getting ready to race. Almost like a barely restrained moisture at the sides of his wide lips as they pull tight across his tusks. This one's keen, because he knows what's coming. He's tried out before. Didn't make it quite this far. Only 3 of you come down alive. You're thinking, do we have to go down into one of the mines? Get something? Do we have to fight some kind of beast? Work together? No. You get 6 hours. You go left, you go right, and then you find each other. And only 3 of you come down from the mountain. Whether it's the group that you're in now, or not. You don't quite... You see it all because of all of your perceptions, just naturally, you're quite good at noticing things that are going around you. You see the man, sallow-skinned, long-haired man. His eyes dart very quickly between the elf and the orc, and he kind of just slinks back away from them a little bit. A little worry in his eyes. And the orc's just... You can see he's already beginning to gear himself up. He's getting his breathing heavy. He's ready to go. And the little elf, just the almost imperceptible curl of a smile, peeks at her lips. You get the sense these people are a little ready to kill you. Andrew goes, right, yeah then, I'm done. Turns around, starts heading down, and Darkskin Man goes, well, 6 hours. Go. See you at the bottom! Turns around and almost skips his way down. And you just are there. The wind coming down these two mountain passes between the three mines, rough-cut paths hewn down, almost switchback stairways up leading into this mountain range. Huh. Kind of look over. There's the half-orc. Well, may the best orc win. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. And I'm gonna kill you. Oh, I've been waiting this for a long time. Come on. He kind of shoulders his way past the man, drops back and gives him those kind of dagger eyes at the back of his head, kind of looks at you all and just nods slowly. And the orc just takes off. Heavy footfalls going straight up the right switchback. Female elf just kind of parts her hands, starts walking backwards, turns and pulls the cloak up, and very, very quickly takes off after the orc, catching pace with him. The man puts his hand on the kind of tumble down boulders that arch this switchback, and again, kind of looks back, gives you all the last lingering look, just kind of sniffs, nods, and sets up after his fellows, leaving you all stood there. And that small bowl between the three mine shafts, as the wind is beginning to come down the left hand switchback and up the right, sucked up with a whistling howl. What do you do?
I look between Celise and Otis, and I kind of give a little sigh. Seems like we gotta get going.
Well, come, let's go up the right.
Right? Left?
Up the right?
They went up the right.
They went up the left. Do you want
No, they went
They went
right.
up the right.
the right? Oh, right.
Yeah, as you're looking, there's a closed mine shaft in front of you, and then there's two carved switchback staircases that lead up through the mountains. They went up the right hand, and then there's a mine shaft on this side and on this side.
How far is it?
To the...
Like, so how much time is it, like, if we were walking up?
If you started going up the switchback, you got no idea. You can't see it. Switchbacks on itself behind the mountains. You've got no idea where it goes.
Might as well go up the opposite one.
I kind of stroke Nolan's head and then whisper, "Follow them."
Okay.
Oh.
You see this snake creature just lift its head, look at Otis, flick that tongue almost out against his face, and then it just falls off his body, and with the flap of its wings just shoots up directly into the cloudy sky, and you see it bank, become this tiny slither of black, and it just goes like an arrow.
Can that thing breathe fire?
Otis just shrugs at you.
You don't know?
I just found him one day. I don't know what he is.
Huh. Okay. Well, if anyone has any outstanding talents or anything that they'd like to share right now, we probably should know about that.
She does all the fighting.
What do you do?
We travel together. He gets his room and board.
What
He's
do
capable.
you do?
He's capable when he needs to be.
Oh,
We should get moving.
God. All right. Let's go.
So in your mind, Astiel, this armoured priestess has just told you that she can fight and he's a burden.
Exactly. So I'm already discounting you in my mind.
Okay.
So up we go.
You start hiking up the switchback. It's a winding, sharp cut. Very narrow at places where you kind of have to turn sideways. You get the sense that nothing's really carried up and down here except a person and whatever mining equipment they can carry in their hands. It's not kind of like the larger path that you took up here that is wide enough to be able to get a cart down. As you continue on, it progressively gets colder and colder.
How long has it been?
Starts cresting into about 45 minutes to an hour. Terrain doesn't change much. It's this still winding stair in the mountain. You see at certain switchback junctions, a mine shaft has been started and then abandoned. There's exploratory and experimental, like, removal of patches of rock to find any minerals that are underneath it. You kind of get the sense that as the further it goes, this is where they're exploring for new veins to carve down into the mountain, but...
Check in with Nolan.
Okay. As you're walking, Otis's paw just kind of gently finds your shoulder. You know what he's going to do, and you kind of just reassure him that you're there, and you lead on, and he's walking behind you. Otis's almost white eyes go completely white. Suddenly, the wind is whipping past you. As you bank down across the top of this mountain, you see three small figures huddled in almost like a small junction between their switchback. There's an old mining cart overturned with tools and a wax cloth kind of thrown over the top of it to, you presume, keep the tools underneath free from the elements. And they sat down and can't quite hear what they're saying, but the big brutish half-orc man, he's moving rocks around on the floor, and he's pointing at each of his two companions and then mentioning things. The man shakes his head, and you see the half-orc kind of rear up and lifts his hand like that to smack him across the side of the head, and the man just raises his hands in supplement and just goes, and nods. Do you get closer?
I tell Nolan to stay in safe range, but if he thinks he can, to get closer without being seen.
Okay. As Nolan, the vision kind of nods up and down almost. He puts his wings out in front of him and just begins to kind of ghost down lightly, and you feel more than see Nolan kind of nestle himself amongst some rocks and begin to slowly start winding his way down. As you're watching the three figures through Nolan's eyes, you see the elf woman kind of perk her head up, and she starts looking around.
Leave.
Nolan just flares up, and as the last look you get as he pushes up, you see her go and look up directly to where Nolan is, and he just kind of banks back up into the mountain and kind of coasting down among the switchback. Do you pull your vision from him?
Yes.
Otis blinks back in with a light little cough, and his eyes are that kind of soft ghostly blue again.
What did you see?
As the elf's face is just kind of staring at you, brow arched.
That is very strange. They are planning some sort of something or other.
Well, so are we.
They are huddled. There's a cart overturned. They're making, Orc Man is making plans with something. With the rocks on the ground, he is pointing ambush?
Okay. Where's the elf?
Oh, well, I only did not get to her too much because, the elf saw no.
She saw him.
Mm-hmm. He is safe, but I could not get closer.
Okay. The human man?
Well, Orcman was trying to hit Human Man, so... I don't know. He does not seem too keen on our plan.
Okay.
Do you continue going? Following the switchback?
Maybe
up or
head
down?
on is not a good idea.
But if they saw your snake dragon thing, they know that we know.
Neither
They
side
do
has
not
an
know
element
that-
of surprise.
No.
They do
They
not
don't know
know
what
that
we're
I
going
have
to do yet. We don't know what we're going
ability to talk to Nolan.
to do. They can't know if we don't know. Smart plan there.
They can never anticipate your actions if you don't know what the fuck you're gonna do. Great battle plan.
They do not know
The
that.
replacement heroes.
Been replaced.
I gotta get some kind of 80s action theme intro going.
They do not know that I have ability to see through Nolan.
Okay.
Nolan is obviously a magical creature, but they do not know how magical. I think that...
How far away was it?
Hard to tell.
You have no idea the distance Nolan has travelled between you and him when you blinked into his vision. It could be just over the crest of the immediate mountain.
Can I
Or it could
telepathically
be-
ask him?
I was gonna
Okay,
say,
you sure can.
Can you ask your friend Nolan?
Nolan, how far are they?
You get a series of images seared into your mind, rapid pace. And it kind of knocks you back a little bit. It's always disconcerting when he does this because it's a pure invasion of your consciousness. You get the sense the distance, they're about half a mile around the immediate peak between the two of you. And it's curving. As you guys are going up left, it has stopped going right and is curving left.
They are getting closer.
They are ahead of you.
Half mile. You said to the...
About half a mile.
Between us, or...
Yeah, they're about half a mile distance between you, but their path has stopped switchbacking and is now kind of snaking across the northern face of the mountain.
They are headed towards us. They are only a half mile away.
You don't know which direction your path continues in. The only way you'd be able to find out is by sending Nolan up your path to find out where it goes. If they connect, or it branches off, or you get higher than them, or you stay lower than them, you've got no idea.
Do you want to send him our way to see what's coming up?
Should we take refuge in one of the banes while we wait?
I'm not a refuge kind of person.
Alright, fine.
Well, I am.
I'm small and squishy.
You can fit in very small spaces that none of you two can.
I would like to hide, at least while I talk to him. It takes a little out of me.
Astiel's tense, clearly not liking the plan, wanting to forge ahead, but... Yes, fine. We'll hide.
So he stands guard in front of Otis.
Just up, rising about 20 feet, it kind of looks like the path plateaus out a little bit. You head up there, and it is a wide opening, very similar to the where you saw them planning. It's like almost like the bowl that you came into first, where the mine shafts are, but very small. On this side, there is a mine shaft, barred and closed. Looks to be in use, but closed for this season. No one's mining right now. You can see there is a makeshift wooden structure off to the right with thick leather flapping, tenting around it, kind of buttressed with very tight rope in a lattice pattern across the top of these leather flaps. You get the sense that it's shackled in place with this tight rope over the leather and the wooden beams to keep it in place. As the higher you get, the wind is starting to kind of pull at your clothing and tug it backwards. The cloak is beginning to whip, and any loose hair you have will streak across your face if you're not careful, depending on which way you're looking. You can tell that as you're getting higher up the mountain now, there is definitely a wind tunnel effect coming into play here. you maybe get the sense that this shelter is there for that specific reason. Inside there is a collection of small wooden stools, very weather-beaten and worn. One of them has the leg kind of chipped and broken on one side, so whoever sits on it is going to rock back and forth. You can see a small metal cup has been left there, and a couple of little stone dice are next to it. It's probably a break area of some kind. You can see a round iron ring suspended just above what looks to be an old but very well-used fire pit.
You said there's a wind tunnel effect.
Yeah.
They have a half-orc. Do half-orcs, or orcs in general, have a heightened sense of smell?
Make
Wouldn't
a nature check.
Isn't it going over?
It's coming towards you.
So we'd smell them more than they'd smell
Okay,
us.
that's kind of that was my second question, was which way is the wind?
So make a nature check for your first question.
20.
20!
So that's a natural 20. What's your nature modifier?
Probably nothing. We really put nothing into that. It's nothing.
Nothing? Okay. So to be transparent for anybody that decides to watch this train wreck, crits only work on attack rolls like they're meant to. They double the damage.
Oh.
Crit on a skill check just means you succeed, like, very well at it. There's not going to be some world-shattering, amazing Spider-Man shit going on here. It's just something that you succeed at very, very well.
You know
I
his
can
weakness.
still be proud of it.
So
Thank you.
on the flip, it's very situational. On the flip side of that, if you roll a natural one, you're not going to fall over and stab yourself on your sword. Like some people will have that happen. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah, you're masters of your craft for the most part. Shit like that's not going to happen. All right.
Oh, like the last one.
we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. So that's just for clarity's sake for any
Would you
listeners.
smell anything?
You're right. That's kind of where I'm getting at now.
So for your second question, the only smells that are coming. Actually, Otis, roll a perception check.
Oh, because it's not just you.
Where? +2. So it's like 13.
13. You're getting avian smells. There's some kind of hawk, something up ahead. You're getting lots of thick, heavy minerals in the air, iron, sulfur, a couple of different things that you're not really aware of, but definitely earthy, metallic tones to it. Cold. You can smell the cold. It's biting in the back of your throat. You can't smell much else, though. There's no definite body odor or anything stale or active wafting on the winds. It just seems to be bringing down the smell of some kind of faint wildlife up ahead, and the cold, and the mountains around it.
Do not smell it.
Okay. Then Astiel feels somewhat safe enough to hide here.
Okay. As Otis kind of nestles himself into
I want the rocky chair.
this little shelter and sits on the rocky chair, just clack, 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 clack,
And
as he's
Astiel
kind of
just
rocking
slowly
backwards and
looks over
forward.
at him and then looks away.
Celeste kind of just automatically positions herself in the opening close to where Otis is, hand on her mace, just kind of peeking up around the edge. What's Astiel doing?
Can I have a dagger with my other hand?
Yep. She just produces this dagger from in her belt. She's got a hand against the mace, and then she's got the dagger switched back against her forearm. You see that one side of it is blunt and not cutting, and the other half is curved, almost back to follow the shape of a forearm. You get the sense that it is used to punch across someone's face and really hurt them.
I do catch notice of that and kind of give a approving little nod. Alright. I'm just antsy. I'm kind of pacing a little bit.
Yeah, there's
I don't really seem
not
too
much. It's
concerned
very
about-
cramped quarters.
Right.
The size is only about 10-ish feet across. It's big enough just kind of for the three of you. And being the two of you being in such heavy armor with a larger weapon in Celise's person, it's pretty cramped. You get the sense that it's mostly for miners just wearing leather mining gear and their picks and stone axes and stuff like that. You're definitely taking up a lot of the space in here. What is Otis doing?
I am contacting Nolan again.
Okay. Otis, click, clack, click. And he stops moving. His tail just kind of stops and his eyes lose that ghostly blue. It doesn't flash, it doesn't roll back, it just vanishes. Swirls almost like a drop of ink in milk.
Oh,
And then it's gone.
I'm used to that.
Nolan's looking down at a small bowl cut into the left winding path. There is a mine shaft, and he can see the tight, pulled back ringlets of Salisa's hair just poking out beyond the awning. He is probably about 40 or 50 feet above you, just in the rocks. You can see that where he is, he's got a pretty good view of the surrounding terrain up the left-hand side as it curves up and comes right to a large flat plateau above that he can't quite look over. He's at the wrong angle for that. Then there is the peak of the actual mountain between you, and just at the very edge of his vision, you can see a tiny piece of the cut back of the right-hand path looping up around the mountain. You get the sense that at this plateau is where the two paths meet. You're probably about another 4 or so hours away from it. Just looking at the terrain, you can see that these two paths cutting up in the mountain there are small mining outposts along the way. Nothing as huge as the 3 main veins. When you first came up into this mountainous region, you get the sense that there are networks all up in these mountain range, sinking new shafts, finding new minerals, new deposits, all that kind of stuff. But these two paths definitely connect.
Click, clack, click, click, click.
Yep, you hear click, clack, and then that ghostly ring of blue is back in his eyes.
What did you see?
They definitely meet. There is plateau at top. I think that it's supposed to be scene of like major battle or something.
How far?
4 or 5 hours.
We only have 6, right?
Less than now.
Less than, because we've been hiking for an hour.
The going has been pretty slow. I mean, you've been pretty cautious on your way up. And you've been stopping to see through Nolan's eyes.
Okay, so I'm not asking this as Astiel, but so what happens if we don't get back
You don't
in
know.
6 hours?
Nobody asked.
I hate this game.
You need to tell me the rules. This isn't a good tutorial.
Brings up the phone. How to cheat at D&D. Is that a piece of gum on the back of your dice, I see? No, you don't see a damn thing. 20, 20, 20, 20.
We have to go. I don't want to be a sitting duck here. We're a sitting duck.
It's not good to fight in these quarters.
No.
Oh, and your hair's poking out.
We're moving.
Roll a survival check, Celise and Astiel.
Good job.
18 plus 3.
So 21.
Oh, 19 plus, well, no, survival minus 1, so 18.
Okay.
But still, not 1.
So, Astiel is never usually one. Your entire life, childhood, you've been big. You are your father's daughter, and he is a bear of a man. Okay? You've got his temper. You resemble him in everything. The only thing that probably stopped you lying face down in a gutter by the age of 13 was your mother's temperance. Being a mother of the temple, that is her position. She is equal parts midwife. She's equal parts, death priest. She is equal parts doctor. She had a wisdom and a good head on her shoulders enough to keep her daughter from falling in with the wrong crowd in Tamelheim, which for her strength and bullheadedness would have been a very easy avenue. Your father, while a loving man, didn't quite pay attention to the finer graces. He would have preferred it if you had been a son, because you could have joined him in the family business. Your mother, on the other hand, knew you were destined for a bit more. The bullheadedness never left, and if you can't punch your way through something, you ignore it and punch your way through it anyway. In a rare clarity, you stop thinking about just reaching the top and the fight that's coming, and you focus more on how you're going to get to the top. Celise, you're not unaccustomed to difficult terrain, especially with the Lost Coast. It's treacherous sinking sands, wide open dunes where there is very little shelter and very little water to find.
I just pulled that out of my sock.
You need to shave your toes, dude. That's a very long hair.
Jeez.
Just leave it back where it was. It's
So
fine.
you usually have a pretty good eye for surrounding terrain. You both come to the almost instant understanding at the same time. There's almost like a look between the two of you. If you made double pace right now, you could probably reach the top either at the same time as they will, or if not, a little bit before them. But it's going to be tough. Like, you're going to feel it when you get there. Whether that's a good thing going into a potential fight or an ambush scenario, as Otis said, I mean, that's up to you.
I'm ready to go. I want to go.
We might as well go. I came here for one reason and I can't walk down without it.
So, are you going to go cautiously, or are you going to make time?
Make time.
I need everybody to make a constitution check. So, 1d20 plus constitution mod.
This is the rats
5.
all over again.
So 5 for Celise. The rats.
Oh, you go.
Best throwback reference.
Oh.
That's cocked. It has to be
know.
rolled in the
Dang
in
it.
the
That's lame.
in the basin.
Fuck it up.
Constitution
Mm-hmm.
plus 2.
Okay, so what was the total? 14? Okay. So 5,
Grab
14.
20.
Natural or
Natural.
otherwise? Okay, what's
Yeah.
your constitution mod?
Where's it at?
Third one down.
+1.
Okay.
21.
So, as you make this decision, Astiel basically just goes, boom, and she's gone. You see, she takes a deep breath, and she just starts going. You follow up quickly behind Oris, and you follow up the rear. As much as you want to get up there, you can't shake the feeling of that need to keep looking over your shoulder. And the higher up you get, the heavier your armor is becoming. You're very keen about the weight of that mace in your hand. Yeah, it's only about 6 pounds, but 6 pounds is very heavy when it's, swinging against your hip, just patting against your thigh the whole way up. This is very different than hiking up the dunes. This is a rough, high terrain. It's almost vertical in some points. As you come up, the air is getting colder. You can start to see stars twinkling in the sky. All that light blue and dark cloud is beginning to settle into almost an indigo blackness. And you come up, following the curve of the path, and there are 2 high rises of stone outcropping on this plateau. Channel between them is a passageway, and you know that this is where the roads connect. We're going to go ahead and take a quick bathroom break, get some drinks, and we will be right back. Okay. there before you is that cut into this ridge top where you assume, as the ground is now beginning to level out, and you can just see, instead of the rising mountain to your right-hand side, you're almost at the peak of this smaller snow-capped mountain, stretching out across the horizon. Now that you're up here in this altitude, you can see this almost forest of mountain peaks that just stretch out as far as the eye can see in a westward direction till they just become lost on a purple horizon. Down across the sweep to your right-hand side, moving eastward, you can see the mountains begin to naturally curve down, and they become progressively more snow-capped. Somewhere is the roaring source of the Clear Glass River that comes down from this frozen north, and there you can see on the very edge of the horizon, begins to creep down, the Frostbark Timberlands, which is the northern shore of the frontier. You get the sense that you're very fucking high up. Celise is very aware of this. It's definitely becoming tough to breathe. Astiel stops, single bead of sweat just kind of dripping down the side of her head. You take a deep breath. There's fire pumping through your veins. You are ready. You just want to get in there and do this. It's definitely been a workout, but the more you're doing these grueling tasks, it's almost as if your feline body was built for these kind of things. The short bursts of endurance, the climbing, you're beginning to become a natural at it. The initial leg of this journey was easier, because it was becoming easier. But now that you've just essentially scaled the mountain, instead of moving up piecemeal, you're feeling raw in certain places. You wish you would have had the initiative to adjust some of your straps, loosen your belt a little, maybe ride it a little higher. You're definitely getting some chafing on your inner thighs, and it's making the journey uncomfortable. You hear Otis step up behind you, and Celise a couple of steps behind, little too slow for your liking. You know, deep down, you could have been here a lot quicker if she had picked up the pace. But there, before you, is the predicted site. From Nolan's aerial scouting. The sun is beginning to cap low. What do you do?
How much time did it take us?
You probably managed to shorten it down to about 2 hours.
So we've got 3 left.
Hard going.
Where's Nolan? Where's Nolan?
Do you think it's wise for me to zone out right now?
Well, no, that's what I meant. He's not back yet.
He is close, but he is
Okay.
staying safe.
Okay.
Nolan's staying a respectable distance away from the engagement area. He doesn't have sight on the other party right now.
I can have him perch somewhere high, but he will always run away. That is his first priority. He's not fighting.
I understand. Can we hear anything, see anything around us?
Make a perception check.
As a group, or?
That's up to you. If you can all make individual checks, or you can help each other. One person can make the check with advantage if another person is helping.
How does that work?
So say you wanted to look around and Otis was like, I want to help. Instead of you two making separate rolls, you get to roll with advantage, so you roll twice and pick the highest, because he's helping you. He could be like pointing over there, and then you can hone in on it. Things like that.
Okay.
Might as well do that.
Yeah. How's your eyesight?
It's okay.
He's okay.
Your eyesight's good, but you know for a fact your sense of smell is much better.
Alright.
I will help.
Otis will help.
Okay, so make a perception check with advantage. Roll twice, pick the highest.
Excellent.
That's not good. That's a 4.
Okay.
17 plus.
Plus, what's your perception?
Do I get my perception or his perception?
Your perception.
Oh, okay.
Him aiding you just allows you to roll
16.
twice. So 16 total?
Yeah, because it's -1 for my perception.
You gotta love low wisdom.
You'll like it later when
She's a bull in a china shop. You kind of narrow your eyes. There's not much you can see. The light is almost bleeding over the top of the stone ridge. You get the sense that the sun is beginning to crest over the world in the far northern mountain range. So it's casting longer shadows that are kind of creeping to the westward side. And there's that flare of light that's just hazing the sky. Looking right down the passageway, it begins to curve off to the right, say 100 or so feet ahead of you. Otis's ears prick and his nostrils flare slightly at the edges. You can smell burning, coal, ember, fire. There's something burning up ahead and it's carrying on the wind. The wind now is not pushing, it's not punishing like it was before. It's just a soft, gentle breeze now because you're on the flat, open top of what you... Now that you look at it, it seems that at some point a top of a mountain has been cut off here. This plateau doesn't look entirely natural. The more you look at these stone outcroppings ahead of you, they're man-made. This area seems like it was excavated for some reason, but you don't quite know because you haven't gone in any further. But there's something on fire up ahead.
There's fire.
Oh, it's just very bluntly says, there's fire.
Can I smell that?
You take a second and go, you take in a big lungful of this mountain air. The cold is burning your lungs, but there is a very, very, very faint smell of wood smoke.
Are you going to tell her about the thing?
What thing? What thing?
He is a capable fighter if need be.
You literally said 2 hours ago he does nothing.
He said he does nothing.
What thing?
I have this.
Do you have a weapon? A sword?
I have a crossbow.
A crossbow. Okay. I'm not getting, obviously, what they're trying to say. I wouldn't think of this
Make
thing.
a wisdom saving throw for
I'm
me,
not good at
Asiel.
wisdom, you know this.
Wisdom saving throw.
Hulk smash.
Just based on the
No.
situation.
No.
What is that?
Dice
It's
says
a natural one.
no. Dice says no. My wisdom is...
Negative.
You are
is-
your wisdom saving throw.
My
Box
wisdom
right.
is -1. It's literally... I have less than... I have 0.
Okay, so
You just don't know.
all that's going through your head right now is you're at crunch time. You're about to get off the bench and head into this. And they're lying to you.
I'm mad now.
You're past irritated.
Like, this is our lives, my life, on the line here.
And he now has a crossbow. But he's a capable fighter.
But he wasn't.
But he
2
wasn't?
hours ago.
So what the fuck is going on?
My fists are balled at this point. And
As
the
you
tight line
you
of my
hear-
jaw is even tighter. You can almost hear the muscles go.
You see her jawline tighten, and it kind of pulls this small scar that's on the corner of her chin. It almost makes her look like she snarls, like a grimace, but you hear the of the iron plates grinding together against the leather of her gloves.
I don't have time for this. We don't have time for this. Really?
Astiel, I can't speak to you to the side. You over there.
Astiel shoots Otis just this look of like borderline disgust and just.
You see the two very large women turn their backs on you and head over. You know Celise is about to have the talk. And it makes you a little nervous. This is the first time it's been mentioned outside of just the two of you. Unbeknownst to you, there is a small cat man pouting silently behind you. Just the edge of his tail swipping against the rock.
I look to Celise.
I did not tell you before because I didn't want to disturb Otis. He's unaware of certain... He can fight. He is capable of protecting himself and his goal.
That doesn't mean anything to me. We're about to face down certain death. You said 2 hours ago he couldn't protect himself, that you protect him. I don't like this. Astiel's kind of squaring up a little bit.
I'm not trying to be your enemy.
It flicks back
You're not
to
trying
Otis.
to be my friend either.
It flicks back to Otis, who is batting a rock around the floor.
You're not trying to be my friend either, and I'm not trying to be yours right now.
No.
But you're with us. You're with me. We're together in this. We have to trust each other.
Yes.
Can I hear them?
Make a perception check.
Is there any...
What is that? An 11? Perception? So 13.
You're not trying to keep your voice down, are you?
No.
Okay. Yeah, you can hear it. Celise is trying to do that diplomatic, and Astiel's just like, what the fuck? Carry on.
Oh,
Oh no.
Don't see me rolling. I'm not rolling nothing. Don't you look over here.
Oh, I can't say that song, huh?
What happens behind it? I don't give a shit what you say. I just can't play it.
Can I do it in like an off-key sort of
Go
way,
for it,
with
go
a
for
kazoo or something?
I've killed the kazoo. Fuck. Alright, anyway. Celise is trying to be diplomatic, and Astiel is basically just throwing her.
Can I persuade her?
are you really going to try that right now?
But he doesn't know, right?
No.
So he can't really persuade me of anything.
So,
I can persuade you to stop arguing.
So-
Pay attention.
a little bit of rules clarification here. What we're going to go for is skill checks like persuasion and deception and stuff like that. You're going to roll those skills based on NPCs.
Okay.
Not each other.
If you want to try and persuade her or something, persuade her.
Okay.
Yeah?
Just somebody tugging at my cloak.
Use your big cat words and try and persuade her. So, do you approach?
I am telling you, there are things that I cannot explain to you because I do not know them. I need an arcane license. It needs to happen. We will fight.
Hearing that she needs an arcane license kind of sparks your interest.
Right, because she's...
You know that you don't need an arcane license because your power comes from the divine. You're there with your raven feathers, it's the symbol of your god hanging around your neck, the kind of side-facing raven's eye and a pale face behind it. She's fucking wearing a battle-worn tabard of Paylor, the blue and silver chevrons. She doesn't need one either. So that means you see this little white, bushy face. Large white eyes with their ghostly blue rings just looking at you.
like that.
license is for somebody else. It doesn't take the sharpest knife in the drawer to figure that one out.
So I look at Otis, who I assume has come up from wherever he'd gone, to kind of enter the conversation.
I was just sitting there playing with the rocks.
And I look to Celise, and I can tell she's not going to tell me anything more, and I'm just wasting time here by arguing with them. If you get me killed, I will come back and kill you.
There is a deadly seriousness to her words when she says this.
Can you really come back from dead?
Don't test me.
Can you?
Don't ask right now.
That definitely piques your interest. Because there doesn't seem that, like, retortive, almost like rhetoricalness to it. It doesn't seem like she's just being obtuse. She's being serious.
Is it to do something
Don't
with...
ask yet.
We need to make a plan for this. I want the orc.
What is plan? You
The
punch.
smell of that fire is now growing in intensity, and you can definitely smell a campfire on the wind that's coming your direction.
Can no one see anything?
Do you want to look through his eyes? Okay. As you're having this conversation, and he just boom, blinks out, and his eyes go that milky white. You kind of stumble
Is he
back a
going to
little
do this
bit.
in battle too?
No.
You know that when you're like
I will
this,
take this time to tell you.
you know that when you're like this, you can speak, and they can hear you, but you can't hear them. You blink in, and Nolan's looking down on all three of you, clustered. You get this aerial view, and you can see these wide plateaus that meet the edge of the mountain. There's this whole carved area right here. You three are about 100 or so feet away from the entrance over here. It's this kind of curving, arrowhead-shaped funnel that leads to the ramp that you came up, right? It just gets narrower and narrower and narrower where you are, and then it widens out to this open plateau. The sheer walls ahead of you are about 20 or so feet tall. There's some height there. You kind of get the sense that if you don't want to scale these walls, the only way in is directly through the middle to where the fire's coming through. Above, you can see this weird, almost labyrinthine structure of carved ramps, placed boulders, huge slabs of stone that seem to have been hewn and then dropped over. Some of them are resting at junction points on top of each other, making these weird lean-tos made out of solid slabs. You can see this crackling fire directly in the kind of a caldera almost. There is this curve, the plateau curves here, and you can see this build-up of boulders that slopes upwards, that leads up onto this, look at the compass, this westward-facing plateau. Towards the east, it looks like the plateau is carved down onto a flat that's at the same kind of level that you are. So to the west, you can go up high, and to the east, you can start weaving in and out of this maze of stone. All across the back here, it's walled in, and then there is a similar entrance on the other side that begins to slope down off to the right, and you guess that's where the second switchback comes. Through Nolan's eyes, you're not quite sure the purpose of this area. It's definitely man-made. Whether it's a fortress was planned to be built here, some parts of it look like leveled foundations, but it makes no real sense. It could be a coliseum carved specifically for this purpose. All you know is that it's high up in the mountains, and Nolan can't really see any of the three. Make a perception check through Nolan for me. 19, he's a pseudo-dragon, so yeah. You can see the half-orc is crouched down real low between a bunch of rocks up on a raised platform about 10 feet high, and the campfire is right at the base of it. It's a very quickly thrown together circle of rocks, and a fire has been lit in the middle, and it's big, it's bellowing up there. They're using some kind of accelerant to really make the flames shoot about 5-6 feet in the air. It's inviting you in. Yeah? You can kind of see crouched down on that raised western plateau behind this big, long, jagged boulder is the human. And there are 3 arrows poked into the dirt just in front of him. And he seems to be kind of fiddling and playing with his equipment, making sure his leather straps are tight, and that his bow is kind of greased down across the wood to make it a little bit more able to withstand this frigid temperatures. He's making sure the rabbit skin wrapping around the handle is nice and tight. He's affixing his archer's gauntlet to make sure he doesn't rip a finger open as he, shoots you. You cannot see the elven woman.
I back out of.
Otis blinks rapidly and takes that quick breath. Doesn't really seem to breathe much when he goes for a trip into Nolan.
Trip into Nolan. Sorry.
The fire is definitely a trap. They're waiting for us. Human man is notching arrows. He's getting his bow ready. Orc man, if you want to punch, is crouched near fire. He is waiting to pounce when we come to investigate, I believe. I do not know where Elf is. She could be here, for all I know. We are not safe.
No, we're not. Can we sneak around?
We would have to go all the way around the mountain.
The only feasible way to do it would either be to backtrack and come up behind them, which is going to take you
Another
best part of the day, the rest of the night, or try and scale the 20-foot ridges in front of you.
I don't know about you, but I could get up there. I do not believe that you are equipped. If you are guns blazing, so to speak, go guns blazing.
What's a gun?
It's a contraption.
Crossbows blazing. Yeah, you're not inaccurate. You're not inaccurate.
It is from where I am from. Do not worry about it.
I assume a 20-foot fall is a pretty bad thing.
Especially in your armor.
Yeah, that would probably be pretty deadly.
The slope on the left it's at a decent enough angle that it'd be a little tough to get up it, but you could do it easier than the one on the right. The one on the right is just like a almost vertical sheer
And where are we coming in on
wall
this?
of rock. You are in this direction.
So the one on the left would be easier.
So the one on the western side is easier to get up to. It's mostly kind of loose shale. You can see dirt in some places, large boulders sticking out of it. The one on the right, on the eastern siding face, is basically just
And I can't go
a sheer
around
wall.
the east.
No, it keeps going until it meets the mountains.
And how much higher is that than the rise that the orc's on?
Considerable. It's about another 10 feet down. So it goes 20 feet, down to 10 feet, down to
Ground.
the level that you're on. This one is 20 feet up the whole way across
And
to
how...
about here.
I guess I won't know until I get there.
Exactly.
I want to try to begin...
I
Which side is the orc on? To my left or to my right?
From what you can remember, he's more on the eastern side, but almost directly in the middle.
He's almost in the middle.
And he has a height advantage.
My-
He's 10 feet up.
My concerns are if we try to climb, one of us fails or all of us fail. We make a bunch of noise because we fall. They just come out and shoot us when we're down. We don't have a lot of time to talk because they will hear us soon.
So what are you proposing?
Go! You think you can take him? Take him!
Can you
Challenge him!
Can you take out the archer? What? No, shrugs are not good. I don't know what you do where you're from. But here, shrugs in life and death situations are not good.
I cannot promise miracle.
And I just give Celise this look. And I just shrug. And I start going up the middle. I'm just going.
Are you
Call out
walking
to him.
or
No, I'm doing like a full-on predator
Challenge him.
moment.
Challenge
With-
him!
as you
and the fire.
you just take a deep breath, you focus your senses,
Call him out to you!
and you start running, just full on sprinting, and you hear this little voice going, "Call out to him! Him!" It starts bouncing off
And all I
the
think is,
ravine. And as you start
Wait
picking up
there.
speed, you can hear your footsteps ringing off the sides. You get the sense the reason why everything is raised and lowered, sound is amplified here, and you're just like, fuck it, I'm committed. And you are sprinting full pelt. You see her picking up a pace that is a little impressive. Like, she's full on sprinting, and the fire is getting closer and closer and closer to you. What are the other two? What are you doing? You taking off after her? Are you going to try and scale the walls to get height advantage?
Nope, we're not gonna scale anything. We're gonna follow in, but I'm gonna be cautious looking out for that elf.
Okay, so Celise is going to take up the rear, but a little bit more cautious. You're doing a perception out for the elf. What
Yep.
you roll?
13 plus 3, 16.
Okay. What's Otis doing?
Oh wait, no, that was 15, so 18.
15? 18? Okay.
those ones are harder to read.
I know.
Do you want the other set?
No, it's too late. I've committed.
Well, you can,
committed to the
you can have that
difficulty.
set. I don't use it. Both these heavily armored women. Astiel is out in the lead. She's halfway down she's beginning to crest into this passage. Celise is
Start putting us on the board.
Celise is starting to run up now. And you can see her looking up across the crest. She pulls her mace out. She's got a dagger in one hand. Well, her hand on the dagger. She's got the mace out. And Astiel just... What are you doing?
I stick close to Celise because I'm scared.
Okay.
And I also pull out my crossbow.
Okay. She's got a bit of a lead on you. You come barreling up to the mouth of this passage, and it suddenly opens out into this kind of 15-foot wide caldera between a steep shale rise on the left, which allows you to get up to the western plateau, and then the entrance directly to your right and ahead of you that kind of curve around this 10-foot mound of stone, and they just weave off in different directions. There's the fire. Do you keep going? Do you pick a direction?
He told me that the orc is kind of in the middle.
Right above.
What can I
said
see?
above, too.
Above, yeah.
Mhm.
What can I see?
You are, there's this 20-foot caldera around you. There is that raise of shale on the other side. There's a 10-foot massive rocks next to you, directly to your east, which is an entrance going forward and to the side around this raise.
And that's about where he told me he
And that's
was.
he said he was in this area.
I'm gonna hug the what is that? Mountains there?
Yeah, so this is the shale.
That's the shale.
This is the mound of like rocks raised up.
Right.
This is one entrance into the labyrinth, and this is the other entrance.
Okay.
What are you doing?
I'm looking at something to see what advantage I have with spells.
Mhm.
I don't.
Okay.
So, I'm going to continue east around that mound, watching it as I go, and also trying to keep some sort of perception out around me.
Okay, make a
because
perception check.
I don't know with that. I'm not so worried about the orc as I am the elf. Oh, well, that's sad. 4.
4, okay. Okay. As Celise comes up behind you, as you're kind of keeping an eye out around looking for this elf, you don't see her at all. And up ahead of you, you see Astiel veer off to the right. What is Celise doing?
Where did you say the archer was?
Under this area.
I don't know anything there really. What are you doing? Looking at my spells.
You lose sight of Astiel.
Yeah.
Opening out in front of you is this caldera, and just almost instinctively, you pull up the kind of teardrop-shaped shield that's kind of hanging low across your middle back, up in front of you, and you've got the mace. You feel very exposed. What's Otis doing?
Can
You see Astiel disappear off to the right, and Celise brings out a shield, just kind of creeping into the caldera.
Can Sully still see or hear me?
Yeah, she could probably hear you. You're only about 30-ish feet behind her.
Can I see? What can I?
So directly ahead, you can see the steep rise. You can see nothing up top. You can see the firelight glistening. Celise is out like silhouette, and that's it. You can see it opens out, like in front of her. Astiel is gone.
I get closer to her and I point to the spot that I saw the half orc. That is where I saw him.
As Otis points up past you, this arrow goes and smashes off the rock next to your head. You hear that of the metal streaking past the stone. The wood shaft explodes. I need everybody to roll initiative.
2. Oh, that's yours. 3.
Yeah, mine's not bad. 5.
Okay, so Celise is initiative 3.
2.
Oh god, Otis is 5.
I was gonna say Otis is 5.
And Astiel is 2. Jesus Christ, guys.
Yeah, that was
That was a bad one.
That was a bad
We
one.
walked right into their trap.
I told you.
What else would we have had to do?
I'm gonna have to get some replacement heroes.
Yay!
We'll just be the ones who
Next
learn.
episode will be making new
Dibs on the elf.
characters.
Everybody got spare characters, right?
I called him something else.
See, that's what these are our spare
Yeah, these are the spare characters.
You wake up as an orc. This is weird.
A half orc.
A half orc. I feel funny.
Alrighty. So, I feel funny. What happened? As this arrow explodes next to you and the splinters kind of pepper your cheek, digging in into the skin, you feel the sting of it, but not quite enough to draw blood or do you any damage. You hear right behind you. You two see the large half-orc grab the boulder. He just appears, grabs the boulder, turns, drops right down behind Astiel, and just rises up. You can see that strange, monstrous helmet has been pulled down over his face, and you can just hear the breath misting out the front of this snarling jaw, curling ram's heads, the deep blue tanned leather, and you see him pull that giant axe up in front of his head and just bring it slamming down towards Astiel's back. You hear crunch as it connects right between her shoulder blades, splitting through the cloak. Her hair whips back and she stumbles forward.
Please stop.
You take 9 points of slashing damage as the great axe embeds itself into the thick corded muscles of your shoulders. Robbed partially of its blow by the thick wrapping that you wear under your armour, but it's cut into you. The breath just escapes your lungs.
The scene pauses. Well, yep, that's me there. I bet you're asking yourself how I got here.
We're laughing.
As Celise sees this half-orc jump down, monstrous helm, and crunch his axe right into the back of Astiel, turning ahead, you see, and the arrow, another arrow, just embeds itself in your shield. All you hear is "fuck" echo out across the kind of labyrinth here, and that's it. You're up on your guard. Someone's gunning for you. You can see the tip of the arrow splintered through the other side of your shield, just poking right towards your face. Okay. And then, Otis, you're up.
That's bad. Otis fumbles with his crossbow and kind of like drops it, and then he like freezes, and he has a moment, and then he just ragdolls.
Okay. You don't see this, Astiel.
I would have been like, are you fucking
And
kidding
the
me?
half-orc doesn't either. So at least you hear him going, his breathing quickens, he fumbles with his crossbow, he's trying to knock the bolt, and he just kind of goes, falls backwards, and then you know what's coming. There's just this ghostly sigh around him, and he stops. It looks like he's submerged underwater. All of the fronds and wrappings of his clothing just begin to drift up. And he comes up, arms all just limp. He's moving almost like a marionette.
Tiptoe.
Through tulips! Lifted by some unseen force. His eyes blink open, the mouth comes open, and this eerie, sucking howl, as if all the sound and wind in the surrounding area just gets pulled into Otis's mouth. The eyes, no whiteness, no inky swirl like when he goes into Nolan. There is just an infinite galaxy. Stars, endless, colours you've never seen before, just rippling like liquid silver across the front of his eyes. Ghostly impressions. The light seems to bend and twist into these strange, almost squid-like tentacles made of the starlight. Little pinpricks of light from the stars above seem to actually get caught in them and drift down.
And I see none of this.
You see none of it until this 8-ish foot sphere of gently drifting, almost translucent ghost tentacles whip around next to you in slow motion with the limp form of Otis just being carried along. Where would Amon like to go?
Amon. What can Mon see right now?
Amon can see the vast, endless timelines of 1,000 possibilities, but right now his vessel is in danger, so he can see immediately to his left the one we won't eat today.
Yes. That one.
A small circle of something stone-like, he thinks, in front. He knows there is a terrible presence off to the right-hand side, which is an immediate threat. So that's probably thing to focus on right now.
I'm
So-
going to tell back there, don't eat.
So you'll go.
So, Amon moves forward.
Okay. Immediately to Amon's right-hand side is the rippling shoulders of the half-orc, axe embedded down into whatever this one will become.
He Eldritch blasts him.
You see these two tentacles just rise up, and you hear this sound that you've never heard before. In fact, actually, the only thing you can liken it to is the noise of the passage. It's almost as if reality rips, and there's suddenly this blinding flash of starlight. Go ahead and roll your Eldritch Blast.
Please don't roll one, because you'll murder me. You'll kill me so dead, not even the Raven Queen can bring me back.
Oh, you got killed.
I gotta
by
roll a
what?
d20 for the hit, right?
Yep, a d20 plus your spell attack bonus.
Oh! Spell attack bonus?
Yeah, it's right here.
Plus 5, 7.
This beam of starlight goes
I'm an interdimensional
and
being.
cuts
I'm
the
so
rock
powerful.
in half in front of you.
For a moment, my attention is completely taken off the fact that there's an axe in my fucking back. And I'm just... What?
The rock goes tunk, and there is this rise of steam and particles, and then it just goes. You hear a huh directly behind you. Celise, you're up.
I have a question.
Yeah. What's Celise's question?
Can Amon speak yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. He
Just
can
like grunts and
project kind of
feelings.
not feelings, thoughts,
Okay.
like a sense of something, but he can't directly speak yet.
Okay.
Go boy.
And the thing is, I can't even play him like he knows you guys. You guys don't matter right now.
Can I cloak her in radiant armor, or would it just be null at this point?
No, you definitely can.
Please
Please don't roll one, because you guys
You-
are gonna kill me.
Also, I'm gonna tell him, please don't attack the one with the raven feathers.
Okay, so as you step forward, you're just like, don't attack the one with the raven feathers. You can't quite see Astiel,
You don't hear that.
so you'd have to step forward to get a clearer view.
Okay, so I'm gonna move.
As you step forward, you turn. There is the floating orb of Otis, and this miasma of roiling starlight around him. There is the orc in front that's slowly turning to look over his shoulders, like wide yellow eyes inside the helmet, just like, what the fuck? And there is Astiel down, like on one knee, blood just pouring down her back as he's slowly pulling the axe out with a grind of gristle. You reach up and you grab your holy symbol, shield kind of hanging loosely against your arm, and you focus down on Astiel. How does the spell activate?
Okay. Channel blessed energy into an ally as an action.
Okay, what does it do?
Didn't pop up on my spell book, so
Real quick. Okay, sweet. As you grab your Dawn Star of Palor, and you kind of look at Astiel, and just in the back of your head, you're like, Dawn Father, protect her. And this single beam of sunlight just goes cutting down through the darkness in the heavens, and just touches Astiel lightly on the top of her head. And that's all that happens.
Oh.
Astiel, you're up.
Okay, how many spell slots do I have as a third level paladin? Where do I find that? Because I tried to look in the book and I'm not clear on
same question.
Okay. Okay.
Because, I mean, I'm looking at...
Here we get the rules.
I'm looking at where it says spell slots per spell level, and it says third level, but then it says first and 3, and then it has just little dashes.
Okay, we'll go over that. So, Celise, just because I've got the cleric page up right now, you
I have 2.
you can cast 4 level 1 spells and 2 level 2 spells, and as many cantrips as you want. Cantrips are unlimited.
Right.
Because it's basically spellcaster's weapon attacks.
Right.
That's what it is. For Astiel...
I think, will you double check mine too?
Yeah, don't worry. For all of you listening at home, this is like the second time, mostly, that we've all kind of got together for D&D.
Yes.
So
We're learning.
bear with us. If you start shouting at us in the comments or you send me messages, just know that one, I'm not going to cry at night. Aman is going to come and touch you with his starlight penises, and I really don't care. So let me find the Paladino. And this is where people are screaming at their
Come on. What are you
phones
doing?
and everything. So you can cast 3. You've got 3 spell slots.
Total.
3 first level spell slots right now.
That's all?
Yes. So you could cast 3 level 1 spells or burn smites. You can do whatever you want with them, but you only get 3.
Okay.
Okay, this is a level 2.
Okay.
Okay, so just
Glass
mark
is a
somewhere that you
cantrip,
cast
so-
1 level 2.
I can cut all of them out. I could have cut steps in if I was a mom.
Yeah, that would have been helpful.
And you... You can cast 2 spells a day,
That's what I thought.
up to whatever level you know. So, 2nd level spells right now.
Minus my cantrips, right?
Yeah, your cantrips, you can Eldritch Blast
Everything.
all day and all night. It doesn't matter.
What? That's a cantrip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did I feel
Warlocks
anything when she did
are cool.
the little, like, touch you with the light?
No.
No. Did I notice it?
No.
So I was like, oh, shiny.
The pain in your back and the fact that this rock just exploded in front of you because it looked like the moon touched it. There's a million things happening right now,
But the orc's in front
but
of
the
me.
orc is behind you.
Oh, he's behind me.
He hit you in the back. He dropped down behind you and hit you between the shoulders. Your immediate threat is right behind you.
Okay. And I did not see Otis.
No,
I cannot
You
see.
will.
I cannot see the swirling twilight.
You have no idea that Pennywise is behind you.
Pennywise. We all meow down here. Am I in a crouched position?
You kind of like went down a little bit, but you're still stood up. You're not prone or anything like that.
Okay. And the orc is distracted now?
You got no idea. You got no idea. All you know is you've been hit in the back and the rock in front of you exploded because the moon touched it. Your immediate thought is the orc is behind you.
Okay. So I am going to, from my somewhat crouched, position, I'm going to gather the strength and the power from my feet and my legs all the way down. I'm just going to use that power and travel it up. And as I turn around to face him, I'm going to swing my right fist upwards into an uppercut towards his neck and face.
Okay. Astiel just turns and brings this big old haymaker up.
And wait, so outside note, because I've got no weapon but the 2 fisties,
Well, they're technically the weapons.
the weapons, but I can do...
You can do 1 attack and then use your... Because you've got 2 weapon fighting, you can use your bonus action for a 2nd attack. But you can't do something like activate a bonus spell or something like that.
Okay, so I can only do 2 physical attacks.
You can do 2 physical punches, or a physical punch and a bonus action spell. Or a main action spell and a bonus punch.
I'm gonna do the 2 punches, but do I have to do them...
Yep, you roll them separately.
Okay, so then the first one for the uppercut with all my body power coming up into the thing.
Okay, so go ahead and roll.
And then what's my...
In your attack section. It's right there on the book.
It's on the book.
Yep, it'll be the very first attack. Like Gauntlet 1 or whatever it is. Or Talon 1.
Talon 1 is attack bonuses +5, so that's a 16.
As you come up, it deflects off the base of his helmet. It snaps his head back and you hear it, but it kind of pings away. You don't feel like it connected quite as heavy. Go ahead and
Right, and
go
then
in for the second punch.
So I've stunned him a little bit, or I've at least winged him.
You kind of get the sense that he kind of saw you coming a little bit and tried to anticipate it, and it just clipped the edge of his helmet. You don't think it did any damage.
Okay. I'm going to use my left fist, and now that I'm in a standing position, take kind of 1 footstep back and then drive my left fist forward into the center of his chest to try to push him back with a punch.
Okay, go ahead and punch him.
21.
That second punch, as he turns, his attention focuses from whatever's going on behind him, which you're just not focusing on right now. You can see something around him, but you just don't care. You assume it's the firelight. He looks direct dead on, and you just go bang and smash your fist right into that snarling blue mouth. Go ahead and roll damage.
And it's 1d4.
1d4 plus, yeah.
Oh, that's hard to see.
Right.
It's a 3.
3?
So plus 3 is 6, right? 1d4 plus 3, and if I got a 3?
Yeah.
So 6.
So 6 damage?
Yes.
Okay, nice. There's this crack as his head snaps back, and you actually hear like the back of the helmet snap against his shoulders, and he stumbles slightly. His fingers kind of loosen a little bit on the axe, and there is this spray of pink mist out of the front of his helmet, coming out to the top. He kind of goes,
and I do it back.
and as you're growling at each other, you see the eyes on the helmet flash yellow. I need you to go ahead and make a wisdom saving throw.
Oh no, but wisdom is my bad point. Oh.
He's doing this on purpose.
Does that count? Wait, does that count as an attack?
It's the first one of the night.
That's not the physical attack.
Okay.
It's the first one of the night.
First critical one. As you're snarling at each
It
other,
was nice knowing you, folks.
the face comes out and it curls up into this giant roiling beast of thick blue leather skin, 6 arms,
Oh, fuck
tipped
you.
in these razor-sharp talons. As it brings its almost goat-like face open, this serpentine goat-like face, the curling ram's horns, as it roars, lightning crackles down from the sky, and you take a step back and let out the first yelp that has escaped Astiel's lips since she was a child. You are now frightened of the half-orc, and you cannot move towards him. On your turn, you'll have to try and move away from him. At the end of your turn, you can roll a resolve to see if you shake that fear. On top of that, he's going to go flick the axe up to the end and plant it straight in your chest. He's going to roll with advantage because you are now frightened of him. And the axe slams straight down into your shoulder guard. He does 10 points of slashing damage as it cuts right down into your shoulder. The second the axe connects, there is this blast of divine golden sunlight from Astiel, and it burns straight into him. You actually see the flesh of his face singe and roll back, and he's physically blasted back, stumbling almost into Amon's hungry starlight tentacles.
Do I see this now?
Go ahead and roll
Do I
it.
see?
Yeah,
Amon? This one?
you
So I took
just
the
a
damage.
second, you take the damage, and then there's this explosion, like a holy grenade out of the front of you. You know this is not the Raven Queen's doing. This is pure sunlight, this is Paylor. So yeah, it'll be 2 of those.
At the same time or back to back?
You can just roll them back to back and just add the numbers.
10?
Was it 2d10 or?
Yeah, 2d10.
2d10, yeah, so that's 10 plus
Plus
Yep.
another.
And then my cleric level.
15. Okay, so he takes... Shit. With this explosion of divine radiant light from Paylor that blasts out of you, you feel this coldness enshroud your chest almost protectively, and it weirdly feels like hands coming around from behind you to hug you and pull you back away from the sunlight.
Oh.
The half-orc is blasted back. You see, like, the helmet kind of, like, breaks slightly and hangs open, like the jaw unhinges loose, and one of his eyeballs just turns white and shrivels in his head, and all of the heavy, thick beard and everything, all of the skin and the armor across the left-hand side of him just buckles and blisters and peels away, and he's just kind of there going, sucking in breath from this ragged wound, this burn that just seems to begin. You can start to see the glistening skull and the edges of his jawline and collarbone as the skin continues to bubble away. Directly behind him, the knight is moving. As he kind of stumbles back and the axe kind of drops limp in his hand, you see Otis, like, risen up about 4 foot off the ground, feet dangling, like, fingers and claws twitching of their own accord. His head just kind of roaring silently. It almost feels like the wind is being sucked into his mouth, and there is endless starlight in his eyes. Around him is this halo of ghostly, almost seaweed moving shafts of light that are tipped in these weird, like, curling pseudopods.
Can I eat it?
I'm wondering if potentially...
I want to eat it.
Not yet, no, you go.
I'm wondering if potentially this is just my dying synapses. The thoughts of my last dying synapses kind of firing off. Because I'm down to a 5.
Okay.
Oh, is it?
You hear an arrow and someone scream. But it's none of you.
Oh, I know what you're gonna do, you bastard.
And then you can hear scuffling, as if 2 people are grappling and tussling somewhere off in the labyrinth. You can hear grunting and yelling and rocks falling. And then we're up to Otis. Well, Amon.
I want to eat it.
So the tentacles kind of come out, and you see the hover go, huh? As these tentacles go, and they wrap around him. One just kind of grips his head, and it begins to lift him up off the ground, and he starts to go, what the fuck is happening? Go ahead and do an Eldritch Blast.
Okay. 8
Plus...
I mean, I have him. Wouldn't that put me at advantage?
Yeah, because Astiel is like right up on him. Go ahead and roll with advantage for the flank. Natural 20.
Woo!
I eat him.
I eat it.
Go ahead and roll a damage roll just for the sake of this.
What?
Eldritch Blast, 1d10.
Yeah.
You can always go ahead and actually make
How
it right
did your
in.
interdimensional pet?
That's,
Step 1.
which one's the
Step
D1?
1.
This one?
Yeah, that's that one.
Step 2. Step away.
Oh. I keep doing that.
I know what he's gonna do with this archer. I know what you're gonna do.
Okay, so you see the half-orc get lifted up, and then you have heard pigs dying. They squeal, and this is a very similar sound. As you begin to watch the starlight crush an arm, pull it off, and then it goes and disappears with a spray of pink mist. He sees this and just begins to scream. This big, brutish half-orc is screaming, and he screams so loud and so hard that blood begins to pool in his mouth as his vocal cords shred, as suddenly the starlight pulls him apart, and he goes almost like being crumpled like a piece of parchment till he blinks out of existence. This pool of blood just goes and splashes the ground. The orc is gone. There is
I'm full.
an axe, blood-stained axe that clatters to the ground, and the slightly broken blue helmet just goes and Scooby-Doo drops to the floor.
I was hungry.
Celise, you're up.
I'm gonna...
She's used to this.
Still unsettling.
I'm gonna turn
You're not
into what
scared
else
of them
is
anymore?
happening.
So you can hear the sounds of combat are coming from up the shale ramp and off to the kind of northwest of you. Just gonna go ahead and pause there real quick, because I gotta pee.
Ugly hunter man.
You got no idea what I'm doing. Anyway, back into this as the players begin
Otis.
to accuse me of certain things. Yeah, that's Otis. That's Otis. Those are the noises that come out of his mouth as Amon is in control. Just so yeah, Celise, you're up. So you've turned to the northwesterly direction.
gonna move towards the fight because I'm figuring I'm gonna have to.
Do you want to kind of go into the labyrinth or try and make it up the shale embankment?
Oh, fuck, they are.
Mm-hmm. They're definitely up on the plateau above you.
Do you really want to separate?
No.
I think we need to go and see what's happening.
You can't respond. It's her go. It's 6 seconds. She can. You can pick a direction. You can shout and tell them we need to go see what's happening, and then you can head up, or you can wait for them. Because you can hold your movement. Say like, and I'm not going to move until Astiel runs up ahead of me, and then you can kind of follow her. You can also do that with holding like attacks and stuff like that.
Astiel ain't running anywhere. She's down to 5 hit points. She's
Okay.
busted.
right now. Because it's only the other two, and it sounds like they're engaged in combat.
Amon is so hungry.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for Amon to move.
Okay, so you kind of just pull the shield instinctively closer and just look at Otis just hovering there, doing nothing. After the tentacles, they kind of seem a little fatter and a little slower now. What do you hold? Do you like forego your turn, or do you hold your movement until Amon moves?
My movement until he moves.
Okay. Astiel?
I'm going to... I can do lay on hands, right?
Yeah.
Myself. I'm going to lay on hands myself for the full...
The full 15 points?
I'm down to 5.
Yeah,
I assume I am hurt.
Yeah, you're bleeding profusely and
Yeah,
your vision's
I can't-
kind of a little blurry.
Yeah, and I can't...
Having just witnessed what happened in front of you, not only did you feel the embrace from inside you as Paylor exploded out of you, some kind of divine intervention happened that really fucked up the orc in front of you. You then watched him get eaten by the knight as Otis marionettes in front of you. In response to this, grab the wound and pump as much passion and fervor for the Raven Queen as you can into your body to prepare yourself for whatever is coming next. You heal 15 hit points.
Okay.
This is the vibe I want to put out.
There is just this bloodied helmet and axe glistening in the firelight directly in front of you. About 10 feet ahead of that is Celise looking up towards where the sounds of combat are coming from, and there is the hovering form of Otis right behind her.
Is this still my turn?
Yes. What do you choose to do?
Now that I feel better, obviously.
You stand straight, you can breathe easier, you're just covered in blood now. There's a decent rip and rent in your armour that you know you're going to have to patch up when you get back, but
Right. So
if you get back.
I rise again and I'm, keeping an eye on the swirly tentacle thing in front of me that I've never seen before. Examining my armor. Pain in the ass that's going to have to be fixed later, and I just look at Celise. I go, so that's what you meant? Yeah, okay.
What do you choose to do?
I want to find out what that noise is.
Okay.
I'm no longer frightened, right?
No, that's all over.
Because,
He fucking dead.
he did.
That's dead. He
If I
dead.
was going to be afraid of anything.
He got to use that thing once, that was it, he dead.
Right, okay. Pretty cool, though.
It's a cool helmet. Do you choose to go up the shale embankment?
Wait, is the helmet still there?
Yeah, it's a little broken from the Radiant Blast. The Great Axe is there, and the helmet. They are still there.
Take the helmet.
You want to pick it up?
Yeah.
That'll be your action, and then you still have your movement.
Yeah.
So you reach down, you grab the helmet, you pull it up, the bottom jaw kind of flaps. It's boiled leather, held together with some strips of like chain and sinew, like rope just made out of like rabbit pelts and stuff like that. It's a little padded on the inside. Doesn't seem terribly effective as a piece of armor, but having seen what it like what it did to you, you kind of get the sense that it's not meant to be armor, it's purely an intimidation thing. It's an enchanted item for intimidation.
Do I feel anything coming off of it?
No, you just you're looking at it, but having seen the effect that came from it, you get the sense it's more than likely magical.
Okay. Alright.
Did you keep it?
I keep it.
Yeah, you stuff it in your side pouch.
What am I calling that?
Call it a... Actually, make a nature check for me real quick.
17.
It's a Behir mask. Behir. The Behir is a gigantic, 17 foot to 20 feet long serpentine beast of thunder and lightning that lives up in the mountains. The hobgoblins worship them as gods of war.
Okay.
This is a war mask dedicated to this, mythical monstrous beast. So that's what it is. You get the sense it's probably imbued with some kind of goblin magic to make it appear like a Behir and terrify its enemies.
Okay.
To really find out what it's going to do, you're going to have to find someone to identify the actual command word or activating mechanism.
Okay. I still have movement?
Yep, you've got 30 feet. You can either try and attempt to go up the shale ridge or head into the labyrinth.
Up the shale ridge.
Okay. 5, 10, 15, 20. And then go ahead and make an athletics or acrobatics check for me.
Which one?
Either your choice, whichever
I'm
side.
going with athletics because I get +5 to that, so 13.
Okay, you step forward, skirting around the flame form of Otis, almost like stepping in the fire to do it, but you couldn't give a shit. And you just... the fire is really not a problem right now. Whatever the fuck he is taking up your consciousness, but you want to get up there. So you step forward, step round Celise, and just start digging into the shale, and you haul yourself up. You get to the top. That's the end of your movement. Comes round. You hear... Okay. You can still hear the sounds of combat. You hear someone yell out. You're not quite sure who it was. Otis, Amon is up.
I head towards the shortest path to those things that are making that noise.
So up.
Yeah, up.
Eh.
The shortest path would be to literally go to the wall and scale it.
How does that work?
Either going around this way or around that way is kind of equal distance. One's up to the left, one's kind of forward, and then it curves up to the left. Path of least resistance. The quickest it's going to get you there is directly up the fucking wall and straight towards him.
Which I guess wouldn't be climbing for this thing. It's just gonna float like...
He would kind of float up. You'd still have to make an athletics or an acrobatics check, but...
I'm gonna laugh if the star god can't climb a hill.
Oh, it just goes... just keeps falling down and smacking. Fucking Gwen Stacy's into the ground. The back of his head just... There's a whole Spider-Man arc after that. So what does Amon choose to do? Left, straight up the middle, or right up?
Would he notice anything? The danger's out of the way.
The immediate danger's out of the way. He knows that the other creatures, these things, these fragile, fleeting pieces of existence that cluster itself close to your vessel are beginning to move in the direction of potentially more food. More emotion to consume.
He follows.
Okay, make an athletics or an acrobatics check for
That's
me.
me.
Oh yeah, that's you. Your choice.
16.
Okay. You hear as Otis just drifts up next to you, just kind of head lolling back on the shoulders, just... And you see the tentacles just... One of them grabs the side of your leg. You don't feel anything. It doesn't feel like anything. You
Can
see
I wrench my foot
Yeah,
leg
you
away?
kind of pull your leg away and it kind of like grips you, but you still don't feel it. There's no pressure or nothing. And he just... up next to you. Celeste, you're up. The look I am getting right now from Kim is priceless.
Silly sighs. Goes to try and climb the goddamn wall.
Okay.
And
Oh.
probably fails. You said acrobatics. Right?
Acrobatics or athletics?
5.
You begin to trudge your way up, and a piece of shale comes loose underneath your foot, and you go, and you slide back down. It looks kind of cool. I mean, it's almost like you intended to do it, but you find yourself
Oh my god.
back down at the base. You've used half your movement. You can't attempt to climb again, but you can go 15 feet around the other way if you want to. Okay.
You're gonna leave me with it?
So you hear
Ciel looks
stumbling
down.
from behind you, kind of glance over your shoulder, and Celisa's, you see her just go and start taking off in the
And
other
I do
direction.
the like arms up like what the and then I look at Amon just okay.
And you're up.
Okay. Keeping a good eye on Amon because I'm not at all comfortable with this. He hasn't attacked me, so I have to assume that I'm safe for now.
Mhm.
But this is still not something that I'm.
This is incredibly
familiar with.
unsettling.
Right, it's really fucking creepy. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give him a little nod and move forward across the shale.
Yeah, you're now up on flat plateau.
Plateau.
To the right of you is a raised, like, long, flat henge stone, like a giant carved boulder. It's, like, rectangular in shape.
Right.
And the sounds of combat are immediately coming from around the other side of it.
Okay. So I'm going to sneak as quietly as I can with this star god at my heels, close to the sounds of the
You got
fighting.
no idea what a mon is?
I'm saying star god.
Go ahead and make a stealth check with disadvantage, please.
What does that mean, disadvantage?
Roll twice and pick the lowest because you're wearing heavy armor.
My bad.
Okay, that's
Can Amon help by like sucking the sound out?
and
Why
do I
would
still
you?
add my stealth?
You still add your stealth modifier.
So that was 11.
Okay.
That would have been 21, so it's 11.
Was that second one a natural 20?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ah, bad dice. Sucks to be you. So you begin to, you kind of crouch down low and you begin to move around. Immediately you see the human and the elf squaring off. You see him kick her in the chest and she kind of stumbles back. And you can see that one arm of his is kind of hanging down the side and he's bleeding profusely from underneath his shirt. Like the short bow is kind of all but forgotten at his side, and he's got a kind of a wicked curved looking dagger out, and she just kind of crouches low, grins at him, and there's like blood smeared across her teeth, and she flicks the dagger in her hand. What do? You move 5, 10, 15, you are 15 feet, you got another 15 feet of movement. You could get up to her, but not him.
How far away am I from her?
You're 15 feet from her, 25 from him.
I am going to step forward 5 feet
Mhm.
because I can move and have an action, right? Or I can move and have a I can move and
Yeah,
have
yeah.
an action. I'm going to, and she's within 10 feet of me.
10. Yeah.
Should
She's
I-
like at the very edge of that 10 feet. She's at the very limit of that 10 feet.
But she is within the 10
Yeah,
feet.
yeah.
Bring me another 5 feet closer. Am I within his? Is he within 10 feet of me too?
She is now within 5 feet of you. He is within 10 feet of you.
Okay, so I've strode forward 10 feet.
Mm-hmm. You just stop crouching and just stand up. And she kind of, as she looks back, she catches you at the corner of her eye, and she's like looking between you and him, and you just stride forward towards her.
Uh-huh. And then in front of me, in the air, I bring up my gauntleted hand, and I start drawing symbols and start whispering something. Words that don't make sense to anyone.
As you pull your hand up and you start... What language are you doing this in?
Celestial? I don't know if anyone understands it then. That's
I
the
do.
thing. You do.
I'm not
Okay.
there.
But you are not here. So
As you walk forward and you're walking forward and you start drawing your hand across, all the shadows kind of lift up on your cloak. You feel darkness and cold creeping over your head, and where your index finger begins tracing the air, you begin curling the tip of your finger and ripping reality as this pale blue light begins to shine out until the symbol is rising in the air in front of you. You can hear at the very edge of your hearing, someone is speaking Celestial. They are invoking the powers beyond life and death. What do you do?
I'm casting Necrotic Shroud.
Okay. Amon sees this flash of pale blue light, almost like the last flicker of dawn, and then these giant, ghostly, skeletal wings rise up around the edge of this embankment. From the back of where you see Astiel's head is, all of the hair begins to lift up and float, much like Amon's tentacles. All of this dripping, ghostly feathers begin to pour off of these spectral wings. The elf drops that cocksure smile as your eyes blink jet black, and all the veins across the sides of your face begin to go black and creep in towards your now pitch black mouth. Is that your action?
Can I do anything else?
Because
They have to do saving throws against me, don't they? That's
yeah.
it.
What's your spell save DC?
My spell save DC, they have to roll. They must beat a 13 or become frightened.
You see both of them just turn, look at you. She drops that smile and just sort of steps back. And he goes, "Oh, fucking no!" and turns completely around from her and begins to just start running. You do have another 5 feet of movement, so you can still move up and then punch her at least once if you choose to.
I do.
Okay. So stepping forward, you kind of, as you step, she
I got
rises
secrets too, okay?
slightly off the ground, and it's almost like she's using the tips of her toes to just kind of gently dragging, but she's walking, and she comes down, and as she punches out, vicious quick, you see that ghostly blue-black tinged, like, ghost light just shriek, like with the punch. It kind of, like, comet trails off her fist. Go ahead and roll to hit with advantage, so roll twice, pick the highest.
Of a D4, right? 'Cause
No,
it's
D20, because you're still hitting. You still got to hit her.
Oh. Okay. Well, that one's not good. With advantages plus what?
No,
So
you
you
roll
Oh,
again.
no.
roll
I roll
twice,
again.
pick the
Well,
highest.
this can't get any worse. Oh, okay, well, 3.
3.
The first one was 1, the second one was 3. I was not wrong, but I was also not very wrong.
She's so terrified of you that as you go to punch her, she's like stumbling backwards and you just miss her. The force of this punch causes all of her hair to like pull up in front of her, and she just starts fucking screaming. Comes to top around, he's fucking dead. He got eaten. The dude just just starts booking it. He's like, nope, 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 nope. Takes, like, hinges are right. You almost hear his feet skid across the stone as he steps down through this, like, break in the passage. And just out of the very corner of your eyes on the left-hand side, you see the human archer appear, skidding down between these rocks. He looks terrified. And all you can see up the top is the whipping tendrils of Amon, and then over, these giant, ghostly, spectral bone wings. She is going to... She's going to use... Because... Okay, so she's going to activate her disengage, so you don't get an attack of opportunity against her.
Okay.
And she's going to fucking run. She's going to dash. 25, 30, and she's going to make an acrobatics check and just fucking backflip the fuck down here. They need to get away from this angel of death. Come on.
How far away? Can I see them? From where I am?
From where you are now,
Tentacle
you've got like this high-rise look down. You can see everything that just happened with Astiel, and then you can see the human is just like, no, 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 and the elf is just like, she's going.
How far is the elf away?
From you, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70 feet.
Eldritch Blast.
One of the tentacles goes... and this stream, it looks like the stars around in the night sky just go into this focused point, and then this beam of starlight streams out at her. Go ahead and roll to hit.
20.
Natural 20 plus the 5. This beam just catches her straight in the side as she's running, and you see the cloak and the clothes in that portion just get disintegrated, and the flesh begins to just disappear. It's almost like she's being deleted in phasing layers. Go ahead and roll your damage and then double it. So double the dice and then add your damage modifier.
D10.
So yeah, it'll be a D10. Yep, so roll that.
7.
So it'll be 14 plus, what does the Eldritch Blast do? It's plus.
It's,
Do you have the invocation that allows you to add the charisma damage yet?
No, not yet.
Or is it just 1d10? Yeah, just 1d10. So... Holy shit. As this beam of starlight blasts her in the ribs, you hear her go, and she drops down to one knee, and she looks down as the cloak just goes and whispers away from her. The clothing begins to dissipate. You see all of her underclothing just reveal bare skin as the muscle starts to peek through the skin till it gets down to bone, and there is this hollow chunk about 12 inches in and around where the entire right-hand side of her chest underneath her arm, there's nothing there. You can just see blood just starts going down the side of her leg, and she's just trying to suck in breath from one lung because the other one isn't there anymore.
Fast food.
Do you choose to move towards?
I want to stay where I am.
Okay. This beam of starlight just goes, and you see that flash of light again. Celeste, you're up.
I'm gonna blind that fucker. How far is he from me?
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35,
Oh,
40,
he's too
45,
far.
50, but you can move up and get in range to do it.
Alright, we'll do
What's the range of that spell?
that. 30.
30? So, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Yep, you get up and you can see him. He kind of is silhouette. He's like outlined in black and white from this beam of starlight as he turns and looks at you, and he's just like, as you grab your symbol of Palor and stick your hand out. For the blindness damage done, I have to. If there's one creature you can see within range, I've got to make a Constitution saving throw. So what's your spell save DC?
13.
13? Alright, so I got to beat a 13. As you reach out to him, and you see the corner of his eyes beginning to get cloudy, he just kind of goes, looks back up to the ridge, and then over at this thing over on the other side that's swirling mass tentacles, he just goes, no, and just fucking turns away from you. Like, just very matter-of-factly, he's like, no.
I should have used the other one.
You still have another 5 feet of movement if you want to try and get closer to him as he looks like he's going to start running off. Or you can stay where you are. It's up to you.
I mean, because it's already injured. I highly doubt he wants to join the trappers, but he did see him on. So
This guy, apart from the blood that's down his arm, looks good.
I'm gonna get him.
Like, he looks okay. So you just, like, as he turns, you're like, now concentration, you're like, not fucking today. You start charging down after him. Astia. Everything is... The vision, it's blurry. You can see the outlines of everything. There is this whipping, ghostly lichen that clings to everything, and it's like this pale blue. The only colours in your spectrum right now are grey, white, black, and this blue. It's the most beautiful, ghostly, pale, greeny turquoise you've ever seen, and it clings to everything.
When I look at the elf, do I see something? Do I see death for her? What do I see for her?
As he looks at you, you can just see...
She?
Her?
Elf.
So yeah, as the elf, like as you look down at her, you can just see this faint shade of something.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a blend of all the colours that you can see right now. You can't make out features, but the arms are elongated. It almost looks like the head is a shroud, and it's just waiting patiently above her.
But she's very far away from me.
She is rather far away from you. You can get up to the top of the passage looking down at him,
Close to him.
but that's as far as you can get for a single movement. You can double your movement and try and get closer to her, but then you can't do anything.
Double my movement, get closer to her.
So, 25, 40, 25, 50, 55, 60. You kind of drift down past him, and he goes, and like he's caught between this cleric that's charging at him, that's going to stave his head in, and then death itself has drifted down past him. You just kind of callously look at him with one of your jet black eyes, no pupil, just sclera, completely black. But you're intent on a spirit, right there, about to be taken by something. All you know you have to do is just reach out, deliver that final blow, and it can take her to the next life. He's got no direction but to turn and run. Run back the fuck up. And as he comes around the corner, you can see the whipping tentacles off to his southeast. He knows there is death herself down at the bottom and a cleric that's coming for him, and he's just like, God, what the fuck am I going to do? And he kind of pushes his back up against the rock, and he's like, okay, Ivor, breathe, get under control. What the fuck, what would Dench do? What would Dench do? That's going to be his turn. She is going to kind of, she's trying to hold the wound, but her hand keeps going inside herself, and she's like, and she kind of pushes herself up, turns round, sees you, just kind of drops to her knee, pulls a dagger out. She goes, come on then, you bitch. And she flings it right at you.
Oh. With her good arm, I assume that's the
With the one good arm.
Blessings.
You take 8 points of damage as the dagger just embeds itself directly in your chest. You don't even seem to notice.
Okay.
Besties.
And she knows she ain't outrunning this. They thought they were coming up here for a fucking easy, maybe not fair fight, because they figured they'd get an ambush on you, and all kinds of supernatural hell is breaking out.
Except for me.
Like, I can only imagine what someone looking up from the below of the mountain is seeing right now as all of these beams of light and explosions and shit happen, and they're like, what?
And
They're
then
right into the
screams.
kill. Like,
The scream.
the screams carrying down off the mountain. Oh, thematic. Alright.
The gods are angry.
I'm on.
Prowl's back. Whoa.
You see her, she's kind of dropped to her knees now, and the form of Astiel is just beginning to rise up, the wings kind of just leaning further, stretching out towards her.
What would Amon think it was?
Amon's got no idea. This could
In
be...
particular.
It could be an influence from another denizen of the deep beyond. It could be some kind of divine influence. It tastes a little stagnant. It's almost like feasting off of a very long dead star. It's kind of like just absorbing the last fleeting essences of existence itself. It's
Not a tasty meal.
It seems like the one that is aiding the vessel with this influence around it probably wouldn't. Amon might struggle with this one to devour it, and it feels, now that he's focusing in on the potential flesh that he could consume, the emotions that are coming off this other being, it feels tainted. However, there is this pulsing beacon of energy and life right off to the left-hand side, isolating itself from everything.
I want it. He looks like a snack.
As
Looking
Ivor's
like a snack.
as Ivor is just like, okay, all he hears, and around the corner comes the small, broken, floating form of the catkin and all his ripping tentacles pulling itself around the edge, and he just looks up at it, and Amon sees this stain just begin to darken the man's thigh. Yeah, what does Amon like to do? You can blast him, or you can move closer.
I want to eat him.
So do you want to move closer? You won't be able to attack though.
I want to hit him first.
Okay.
And then I'll eat him.
Okay. So
If
the
at all
tentacles
possible.
just kind of like focus in, and there is that swell of starlight as it begins to beam out like a prism.
12. Plus what?
It will be plus your spell attack, which is plus 5.
So 17.
17?
Mhm.
Okay. The man looks up at you, and reflected in his eyes is the beam point of light as it smacks him straight in the face. His hair kind of stands on end, and his shadow gets burnt slightly into the rock behind him. Go ahead and roll your damage. 1d10.
It says 0.
So that's 10 points of damage.
Yeah.
As the flash of light comes back, he just kind of hits the rock, his head clacking off the stone, and you can see the face beginning to peel back. The skin gets red and cracked and blistered, and then begins to part away. As you can see the muscle structure and the bones forming underneath, and he's just like, "What's happening to my face? What's happening to my face? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?" Celeste, you're up. All you hear is, and then Angel of Death is slowly coming down on this elf that's just planted a dagger in her chest, and it's just like, oh, come on. It's just continuing to come towards it, just striding purposefully. What do you choose to do?
Better go check on Amon. She seems to have things handled.
Okay.
I'll probably just arrive in time to see the blood show.
Yeah, you grab the rock and you kind of haul yourself up, and you can look around and you see the human man is just like, as his face is like the worst sunburn you've ever seen, and it's like beginning to crack and blister, and the skin is just like sloughing off his face and then just disappearing to nothing before it hits the ground. And there is a mon drifting towards him. This guy just seems thoroughly just disheartened. He's broken.
Is that so?
It would be a shame. Someone were to, I don't know, by chance, eat him.
Okay. I'm gonna do that.
Okay, so your spell save DC is 13?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. As you kind of see him and you look to the Amon form floating forward, and you grab the symbol of Palor and close your eyes and focus real tight, and you see the human man just go, no, and he stands up. It almost looks like his arms get forced up behind him. He's forced into a standing position. His feet are kind of scrabbling against the ground, and he is held in place. He's just like in this rictus of fear, his teeth gritting, you can see them grinding, and tears are just welling up in his eyes, and he's just flicking backwards and forwards between this cleric that's kind of holding him in place, like staring intently. She's like force of will holding him in place, and this thing moving towards him. And as he's coming, the stops for a second and goes, and he's like, Astiel, you're up. She's on her knees in front of you, having just released the dagger that's plunged in your chest. You felt the impact. It hurt, but that's not even what's on your mind right now. You want to send her on to rest in peace. And she's just there staring at you, just like kind of trying to stop dying with one hand. I mean, she can't. And she's just kind of staring at you. There's just pure defiance on her face. She is not giving up.
Can I use my hands as weapons? Can I grapple as a thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not in this to, like, I know what I need to do in order to get what I need, but I'm not in this to make people suffer or hurt, so I want to end her as quickly as possible.
Okay.
I'm going to stride up to her, take both of my big meaty hands, and I'm going to try to snap her neck. Can I do that?
So, yeah, normally you can't do things like that, but based on her condition,
Missing a one.
yeah, based on her condition, do opposed strength checks. So roll a d20 plus your strength modifier.
Where's my strength?
So it'll be the very first stat.
Okay, 14.
Okay. As you kind of just look down at her, just this impassive look on your face, it softens for just a second with a kind of the almost sympathetic look a hunter gives a trapped animal before he breaks its neck. And you just grab the side of her head. One hand comes up, she grabs it. You grab the other side of her head, and she's trying to pull away, and she starts kicking at your shins, and she's trying to fucking kick you. She's even trying to like come at you, and she's trying to bite the side of your hand, and you just go, and you look up, and as she's struggling, you can hear her straining to breathe as you just grasp the sides of her head, and just with a flex, and she just goes immediately limp in your hands. You see the pale shade bow its head, swoop down into her, and then nothing. She is just a corpse in your hands. You just release her, and she slumps to the ground, head cracking against the stone, motionless. Okay. He is going to attempt to break the whole person, which he does not. So he is just... You see him trying to, like, lift his hands up. And he's trying to say something, but he just can't. Which brings us to Amon.
I want to eat him.
Okay. So, 5, 10, 20. Amon gets up there. Go ahead and do an Eldritch Blast to consume him.
4.
It's with advantage because he's paralyzed, so roll twice, pick the highest.
Is that a 7? 7 plus 5. 12.
Okay, and let me check my conditions here real quick. Okay, so not only is it advantage, it's a critical hit. Because you're within 5 feet of him. So go ahead and roll the damage.
Wait, D10?
D10.
With the...
Yeah, it's either that one or the other one.
This one?
Yeah, but either of those work. So 10, 20 points of damage. As the tentacles just kind of snap out and grab him, he's looking at you. Celise, as you're using your divine focus to hold him in place, this presence just forces its way into the front of your mind, and you just go, whoa, and like step back. It's not Palor. There was just this horrible, icy, almost wet touch, and you just let go. The dude just goes limp, and then he's lifted up, and it just vanishes from sight. It's not the horrible, ripping, sucking, tearing that happened to the half-orc. He just vanishes. There is this soft pink mist that just evaporates on the cold air, and he's gone. And there is just Otis floating in the air. The tentacles seem to swell a little bit more. What's that?
Do I sense any damage now? Like anything scary?
Amon kind of refocuses its attentions on the immediate plane of existence, and other than this stagnant presence, there is nothing.
He releases his hold.
There is this, and Otis just kind of drops to his hands and knees, shakes his little head, tips of his ears wiggling. You lift up, your eyes go from starlight to inky whiteness to 2 little orbs of ghostly pale blue. And there's this metallic taste in the back of your mouth, and you kind of touch your tongue, and it feels like you've bitten your tongue at some point. And it's a little swollen, but you're unharmed. You're now suddenly at the top of this plateau. There is blood ghosted around the floor around you, and Celise is staring at you with that kind of knowing look on her face.
I'll touch that again.
Initiative order is over. We are no longer in combat.
We need to make our way down the mountain.
Everybody just kind of takes that ragged breathing. You looking out, like sensing this presence over your shoulder, you look over, and Astiel is just stood there, these wings just heaving up and down as she stood over this corpse, almost not talking to something, but she seems to be paying attention to something that just isn't there. A couple more seconds go by, and the wings just and disappear. Her hair drops down, and she just lightly steps down onto the ground.
Inwardly, I'm just gonna go, another one.
And you have this very distinct moment that you are caught between a rock and a hard place.
I think I still have a knife in my chest.
Yeah, as you kind of breathe out, there is this tight pain, and you look down, and the elf's stiletto dagger is just sticking out of your chest, like pierced right into one of your breasts.
Oh.
And it's like, ah!
What happened?
You can pull it out. You still do have your secondary healing.
Right.
Not the lay on hands, the other one, the divine touch or whatever it is.
Right. Healing hands.
Yeah, that's the one.
Once a day can regain. It says HP equal to level, so.
So you can gain 3 hit points. Up to 3 hit points.
I'm down to 12.
Up to you. I mean, you got the trek down the mountain.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna grit my teeth, curse, grab the hilt of that elven blade, yank it out.
Pull it out, and did you heal with the other hand?
Yeah.
You slap the hand on like a band-aid, and there's that searing burn as the flesh knits itself together, and you just kind of like flex your arm. You're like, oh, and grabbing one of your titties because it's fucking really painful right now. Just like one hand's jammed up under your armpit, and there is this broken corpse at your feet.
Only way.
Part of her chest just missing. The smell from inside is a little off-putting. You kind of roll the saliva back down your throat, and her neck is twisted at an odd angle, and the skin is all purple and kind of bruised at one point. There is no sign of Ivor, the human, or the half-orc. There's just his bloodied axe by the fire. You have brutalized and destroyed your opposition. Whatever mental toll this takes on you two, because you're just like, I bit my tongue at some point, like, ow,
You
fuck.
two being like.
You two being Astiel and Celise, whatever mental toll this takes on you, that's up to you. All you know is that you are being tested right now. Not only do you have this one to kind of rein in that does not listen to you, once this whatever happens takes over, it's powerful. And then there seems to be another being within your presence now that is not only incredibly angry, but can invoke what you assume, just the feel you got from it, the powers of death.
I do not know what happened.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
I
hear,
bet you don't.
hear this little voice from up on the plateau just be like, what happened?
I think because of the nature of what I can do and what I have seen, I'm shook by this, but I'm not like that shook. I'm curious and
It's more
cautious.
caution, yeah.
Yeah, definitely cautious.
It's just
Because you didn't eat me, but you ate someone. Well, I didn't see the other one, did I? I didn't see what he did because it's behind that mountain.
Yeah, you got no
But
idea
he's
what happened.
gone,
to
and
them.
you
But
saw
he's
me eat
gone,
the
and I
other one.
can't decide. I have to assume.
You
So.
saw the really horrible way to go. The other guy, I mean, probably didn't even feel it. It just blinked out of existence. But that orc, damn, son, Dench felt every second of that.
Yeah.
He wasn't paralyzed. He wasn't numb. He didn't just get consumed entirely by the vortex. He got pulled apart. He fought against it. He felt that shit. You feel pretty full. You know you haven't eaten anything, but there is just that warm comfort deep down in your belly there. There's just this corpse laid at your feet. There's the bow just kind of scattered off. There's that bloodied great axe. Do you guys take anything? Do you search her body? Or do you just kind of head back down the mountain?
Did I pick up my crossbow from earlier?
Nope.
Can I go do that?
You kind of go, oh! And this little cat just skitters away, sliding down, runs over, and you pull your crossbow up. There's a scuff on the like nice kind of polished wood with this nice weathering stain, and you're just like rubbing at the scuff to get it out. Bloodied great axe, kicked fire everywhere, embers just burning, the fire starting to roar down. There's blood all over the fucking curving archway of stone there, and you're just like, huh.
You guys did a really good job.
Just this little voice. Do you do anything with the body that's in front of you?
Can I search it just to see what's on it?
Yeah, make an investigation check.
I'm gonna head over.
5? Yeah, I mean, you find she's got an iron ring on her finger, on her middle finger. It's just a simple band of iron. You can take that if you want. Doesn't look like it's particularly expensive or anything. It just kind of might have like sentimental value or something like that. And there's about 30 silver pieces and 10 copper pieces in a small coin pouch. It's food and drink and board for a week if you were so inclined. You know, it's not an unreasonable amount of money. She's dead. She ain't got no use for it.
Gonna take it, but not for the reasons you think.
Okay.
So what do I have again?
30 silver pieces, 10 copper.
And then what about the ring?
The ring is just a little iron ring. It's not incredibly well made.
I'm gonna take
kinda
that
like
as well.
Pitted dark iron.
I'll take that as well.
So you kind of pull it against the middle finger, and you have to like snap it a little bit to get it off past the knuckle. But you do, it pops off. It definitely looks like it's cut into her finger. She's been wearing it for some time. The skin underneath is very pale compared to her already quite fair complexion. She's probably been wearing it for a long time.
Alright, but I did all of that respectfully.
You snapped your finger.
You respectfully
Well,
snapped
that's
her
why
finger to get the
I
ring.
wish that you could. Yeah, but yeah, okay.
I know, but it's a little tight on there. You get the sense that maybe it wasn't the right size. Like, it wasn't her. She obviously didn't have the size. She just jammed the ring on and left it there past the knuckle. But yeah, that's what you get.
Okay.
What do you guys do?
I call no one back.
Sort of
As long as he feels like there's no danger.
the small black snake just begins to wing its way down on a little air current and slides up around Otis, just kind of perching like a nice silk scarf over his shoulders, and just kind of looks at you, focuses for a second, and then just nuzzles in against Otis's chest.
So, I mean, I guess that means that we are the winners, no?
We still have to make it back down the mountain.
We had better get moving.
Yes, it is cold. I want to fly.
As he says that, the wind kind of picks up a little bit, and the first few flakes of snow begin to come down. You shiver instinctively, and you begin to step past the firelight. And the three of you, almost in silence, just make your way back down the mountain, leaving this bloodied great axe just glimmering in the firelight. And that's where we're going to end the session.